and that's me.
That
hey,
is
how
you.
We doing?
Hey, look at that. We are ready to roll here on a Wednesday. Let's go. We're 5 minutes late. We're starting on the roll. Let's rock and roll, baby. Welcome into Off the Bench. I'm Reed Mouse. Stone Shields, you already saw him. We got a great show for you guys today. If you're new to the show, give us a like, subscribe. We are going to do what we typically do on Wednesdays, which is take in some questions. We're going to take in some questions from the chat. We got a lot of them. We'll get to that in the second half of the show. We call it Mailbag. Typically, we have some famous people get in there. I think a lot of chatters were in the Mailbag today, so we appreciate all the questions that have come in from you guys. A lot about sports, some about the holidays. We got some questions about the holidays. We also have some breaking news here in Cincinnati. Jizzle James is back, active roster. He's going to be available tonight for the University of Cincinnati Bear Kittens as they take on the Hornets, the Yellow Jackets of Alabama State. Big one tonight for UC. And man, what a crazy story the Jizzle James saga has been. We'll touch on all of that. The Reds just signed a lefty, Caleb Ferguson, local kid from West Jefferson High School. He was actually my age. I remember hearing about this kid when I was in high school. Caleb Ferguson, he fills one of the biggest needs for the Reds this offseason, one that kind of slipped under the rug because, yeah, it's a lot more fun to talk about power bats and Kyle Schwarber and Adolis and whoever the Reds are going to get to help that lineup. You also got to realize that there was some big holes there from lefty reliever, and they fill that hole with a pretty good guy. That's a really nice signing from the Reds. I think we're still waiting to hear the money. Let me know in the chat if they've released how much money he's getting. I tried to find it just a few minutes ago. Couldn't find it, but regardless, it shouldn't be too much. Shouldn't break the bank. Overall, a really good signing. Yesterday, Diana Rossini, who has been reporting on this whole Joe Burrow thing, went on the Dan Le Batard show. A TikTok kind of went viral. There's some takes to make from that, and she's kind of in line with how I thought the whole thing. I'll let the Nick Wrights and the Dan Orlovskis and the bigger naysaying Bengals fans, I'll let them have their opinion. I've had my opinion on the Joe Burrow comments last week, and pretty much Diana Rossini said, they're blown out of proportion, and how that can kind of how we get the ricochet from us blowing way out of proportion the words of a man who was already really, really guarded in press conferences. So we'll get to all that today, and of course, we have the Mailbag. Stone, how are you on this lovely wind? It's warming up. It feels like Florida in here.
It does. Yeah, sun's shining a little bit. Might have to, just go short sleeve in here. Yeah, it feels good. Might have to turn the heater off. But, yeah, are we going to the Cintas Center tonight or what? We got a pretty good game. We going?
I will not be there.
Okay.
There is Big East action.
Yeah.
Big East action at the Cintas Center.
Xavier's favored.
As they should be. 2.5-point favorites over Creighton. I saw an article, didn't get a chance to read it, saw the headline, so I shouldn't report on it too much. But the Muskies are actually in a better position to make the tournament in terms of just how they performed in non-con than they were last year, which, of course, they made the tournament, won a tournament game. And, of course, we saw Sean Miller go to Texas after that. I was at that tournament game up there at UD Arena last year. So, no, I will not be at the Cintas Center tonight. I plan on going, if any of you guys are going, on New Year's Eve. Dan Hurley, I don't know if you've heard, he's a Bengals fan. Dan Hurley is going to be in town with the University of Connecticut Huskies, and Richard Pitino's squad will take on that, be going with my family. So that'll be a lot of fun down there on New Year's Eve. That'll be the first time I get there unless I get there this weekend. Or no, they play on the road this weekend. So we'll not be there tonight. All that and more. Stone, let's rock and roll into this one. And we're already talking about college basketball. So let's break down the news that just was reported about an hour ago, which had been kind of a simmering story on the surface as what the heck happens with Jizzle James here with the University of Cincinnati. He was dismissed from the program in the offseason. There was the Instagram post, and things just weren't going right. It didn't seem like things were going right, not just only for Wes Miller's team, for the University of Cincinnati, but things weren't going right for Edgerrin James' son, Jizzle James, who had been a major part of this University of Cincinnati team. And if they're going to do anything this year, has a great chance to be that major part. And there's a few just knee-jerk reactions to this news. And they are thus. Number one, if this team was good, if this team was playing up to their level of play, playing up to their talent level, and we're riding high going into Big 12 play, which starts later this month, if all of that was happening, Jizzle James, and I truly believe this, would not be allowed to be back on the team. If things were going right, you would not allow, if you're Wes Miller, if you're any coach worth his weight, would not allow what has the potential to be a disruptive piece in the locker room enter in a team that is rolling. You wouldn't allow it. You would not let that happen because of the dangers that it presents. The other take is the Bearcats are better today. With Jizzle James on the roster, you're already joining what I think is still a talented roster, just clearly not playing up to their level. You're adding another talented player, someone that was a part of the blueprint going forward. And they are more talented today than they were yesterday. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny that they are a better roster today than they were yesterday. So the question is, how does Wes Miller kind of traverse this? This feels like a Hail Mary. This feels like a last-ditch effort to get the train back on the tracks. And you are able, you can afford to take this risky of a move of letting a guy that was a major disruptor in the offseason, a major thorn in the side of what you're trying to build as a program. When you let someone that did that into this, you're taking a massive risk. But we know Cincinnati, they don't have a whole lot to lose right now. Things pretty much across the board aren't going well. So this, I would say, if you had to ask me right now on, December 17th at 10 in the morning, do I like this move for Cincinnati? It's hard not to like this move. And any take where I would say I don't like this move would come from I'm a Xavier fan, would come from a point of opposition, would come from a point of saying like, oh yeah, this is gonna blow the whole thing up. Because spoiler alert, UC's it's already kind of getting blown up over the last few weeks. They lose to Eastern Michigan. They no-show a second half against Georgia, and they don't compete against, or it was a close game, I guess, at certain points, but they lose a crosstown shootout game in which they were by far the more talented team, facing a coach that's in his first year here. And first-year head coaches in the crosstown shootout are 3-8. Now they're 4-8. So, yeah, this is a move that I guess you have to like because it is a last-ditch effort to see if this team, before they get into conference play, see if you can get this team back on track, this talented roster, because the Big 12 isn't a cakewalk. It's not the American Conference of a few years ago where you can pretty much show up and just by being the University of Cincinnati, you're going to beat the Tulanes. You're going to beat the Western Carolinas. You're going to beat all those teams that used to play in the American, the Memphises. Maybe not the Memphises. But this is the Big 12. This is the big boys. You've got to be playing well to get right. And it's hard to deny that today they are a better team on paper than they were yesterday. But it's also, we know this to be true, and we're speculating here, but we know that if this team was really good, ranked in the top 25 like they were previous seasons at this point in the season, and they were going into Big 12 play, you wouldn't let Jizzle James come back to the program. You wouldn't, because it's too risky if your team is already moving right. So, yeah, it's a risky move, but it's one that they can afford because the current state of the program is not very good. Stone, I think that's the best way to sum it up. I think that's the best way of summing it up is going, yeah, if this team was really, really good, I don't think they let Jizzle James come back. Even if Wes Miller has a great relationship, even if he feels like he has earned the right to rejoin this team, if they were firing all cylinders, you wouldn't let Jizzle come back into the fold because it's too risky. But also, at this very moment, what do they have to lose? That's my opinion on it. What is yours?
Yeah, it's a move of desperation. Jizzle James is a guy that's really, really talented. We all understand that. Remember when he was a freshman and he was coming off the bench and it was like, oh, Jizzle, he's great. Get him more playing time out there. Get him some more tick. And then as his career kind of went on, it kind of didn't improve off that freshman year. But they need somebody that can get to the rack, somebody that can get to the rim. And Jizzle James certainly can do that. We'll see if that he deploys that kind of a strategy in tonight's game and beyond, or if he's just going to hang out with his buddies outside the three-point line and shoot up a bunch of bricks. Also, we would like to know if he's improved at all defensively, because if him and Sean Abayev are on the floor at the same time, that's a lot of easy buckets for the opposition. So I agree with you. It's a last-ditch Hail Mary type of effort. Things clearly are spiraling out of control. I think the general consensus was that, yeah, it's probably going to be a redshirt year for Jizzle. He works on his maturity, works away from the team, and then kind of can come back next year and see what happens. But they need something to change, and he's got a lot of talent. That's undeniable, but that hasn't really equated to wins for this team, and we'll see how he fits in. But, yeah, on paper, they're better than they were yesterday, but also on paper, they should be a good team, and they're clearly not, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's a coaching masterclass from Wes Miller, as we've seen over the 5 years, 4.5 years of seeing Wes Miller coach. He has the ability to rein it all in, get the most out of his players, and we'll see what happens with this Jizzle. I mean, if you would have told me a few months ago when kind of he was dismissed from the program that he'd be coming back a month into the season and that'd be okay, you can't allow that. But they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. They're a better roster today because of it, and it's not like the team is some cohesive unit right now that you're in danger. We saw how they performed in the second half against Georgia. It's not good. So, I think that they don't have a whole lot to lose. All right, let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds also made waves, as I mentioned at the top of the show. They signed one of the biggest needs. I was listening to Chatterbox Reds, both Craig Salin and Nick Kirby. We have the best Reds content, I think, in the city, but I guess I might be a little biased here. I was listening to their podcast working out today, and I knew Caleb Ferguson because he's from the area, West Jefferson High School. I remember him. He's my age. I remember him when he was coming up and everything, and then you kind of forget about him. He makes a career out of relief pitching, and to be honest, if you know every single relief pitcher in Major League Baseball, you're kind of a sicko. But you look at Caleb Ferguson's stats, you look at what he's able to bring, and it's a good signing. As good of a signing as you can make. Relievers are fickle. It's what they are. That's why they don't get paid a whole lot of money, and why the ones that are consistently outputting great season after great season do make a lot of money is because, hey, one season you can have a 3.5 ERA, which is okay. You can have a sub-3 ERA. Then the next year you can come out and have a 7. You can blow it up. But outside of a power bat, outside of adding something boisterous to the Reds lineup, a big cause of need, a puzzle piece to say, was that the Reds needed a left-handed specialist. They needed someone to come out of the bullpen. Brent Suter, Sam Moll from a couple years ago. They needed that arm that could come in, and when you're facing a team that has a lot of left-handed bats coming up to where, hey, you can get some outs, and you can rely on someone. And that's what Caleb Ferguson is going to be. He had a 3.5 ERA. He's played in the postseason of the last 3 seasons. And he is exactly what the Reds needed in their bullpen for the right price point. I've made my opinions well known here that when the Reds have the financial limitations that they have, when they have, only $120 million to spend, you can't go out and spend $20 million on a relief pitcher. You can't go out and get Joe Hader. You can't go out and get the Edwin Diaz's of the world. You can't go out and do that. So more often than not, and a lot of teams are successful in this, you go and buy in the bargain bin. You find the right stuff. You find a guy that has an elite sweeper or is really, really good when he, throws his fastball up and in. And you really got to have a great scouting department. Caleb Ferguson throws 4 pitches. They're all about average. And the thing that can get you really excited about Caleb Ferguson, shout out to Nick Kirby, he's the one that brought this stat to my attention, was that if you look at the last 3 years of qualified pitchers, Caleb Ferguson's third. Yeah, mark it, third. Best in baseball at allowing home runs. At Great American Ballpark, that is a luxury. Balls fly out of it. It's Great American Small Park is the nickname for a reason. And if you're able to find a guy that that generate soft content. You go to his Baseball Savant page. He's in the 99th percentile in soft contact. He's in the 98th percentile in barrel percentage. The one cause for concern when you have from this is sometimes you need a strikeout guy. Now you have a lefty on lefty specialist. Sometimes you need a strikeout guy, and Caleb Ferguson isn't that. He isn't that. Struck out about 7 batters per 9 innings last year, which was a dip from the year before. So there is a red flag there to where, all right, he's not generating as many swings and misses. He's not getting as many whiffs. What happens when there's a guy on second and third and less than 2 outs? Well, you're probably going to get a running because they're going to put the ball in play more often than not. But Caleb Ferguson is undoubtedly a great addition to the Reds. Let me know if someone, I still haven't seen if they have announced how much money he's going to get. It won't break the bank. If it's up over $5 million, which it's not going to be, he made about $3 million last year, so he might make $4 million this year. If it's up over $6 million, then maybe they're spending too much money. But even then, that's a risk, and it might be a big old dud. But that's the price you pay with relievers. I think this is something that fits the Reds very, very well, and I think you can get excited about it. These are the moves that when the offseason's done, you're like, all right, what additions did we make? Oh, Caleb Ferguson. That was not a big move, but at the end of the year has the capability to be like, hey, Caleb Ferguson was a guy that threw 70 innings, was fantastic, sub-3 ERA, relied on him, got us through some really big moments. He has the capacity to be that guy for the Cincinnati Reds this year. So be excited, Reds fans. That's a good signing. Nick Krall, get crawled, baby. All right, final thing I wanted to touch on before we dive into Mailbag. Diana Rossini joined the Dan Le Batard show yesterday. Diana Rossini put out an article last week, and we've touched on this subject many, many times. Ever since Joe Burrow's press conference last week, people had been saying, oh, man, he wants out. He wants, and it's easy to read into that. He's like, I'm not having fun. If I'm not having fun, what's the point of this whole thing? Well, Joe, I'd probably say the $55 million, it's kind of your profession. That's kind of the point of this whole thing. But I get the sentiment, right? People that are highly dedicated to being a professional athlete, they've got to enjoy it. If you're highly dedicated to any profession, it's a drag. It's a drag if you don't enjoy it. It truly does feel like work. That's one of my favorite things about working here at Chatterbox Sports. I never wake up on a Sunday and be like, oh, man, I got to go back to work tomorrow. It's never like that. And you don't want Joe Burrow to feel like that. But I think we all knew deep down that it was a symptom of, oh, the Bengals just blew this game against the Buffalo Bills. The Bengals aren't going to make this postseason. And now our franchise quarterback is talking about how he doesn't have a whole lot of fun. So it was just a symptom of it all. In Diana Rossini, the first things that come in our mouth is this was blown out of proportion. This was blown way out. Yes, Joe Burrow is at that moment very frustrated. I think me and Stone were in the same thing. It just felt like a sense of vulnerability where he was being honest with the people asking the questions. And I'll say this, Joe Burrow, throughout his entire career, when you put a microphone in front of his face, he is a guarded individual. He doesn't show a whole lot. He talks like this, he doesn't give you a whole lot of content. He's pretty frequently honest, but he doesn't read into it. He's not a charismatic figure that you can't wait to see what he says. He's not Jameis Winston with a microphone in front of his face. He's Joe Burrow, and he's guarded. And when he has this sense of vulnerability to where he is just honestly expressing what he's feeling in the moment, doesn't mean he wants out, doesn't mean that he's looking for the exit door, as a lot of people made it out to be. What did Nick Wright say? It's a 5-stage fire alarm. No, it's not that at all. What it is was a guy who is guarded, being vulnerable, and now the next time that he's going to think, oh, I'm going to, kind of be more vulnerable to myself, he's going to be even more guarded than he was before. So if you thought we were getting nothing out of Joe Burrow before, we're certainly not going to get much out of Joe Burrow going forward. He's going to be more guarded than ever. Stone, I don't know if you had an opinion on the Diana Rossini. I shared with you the TikTok. Yep. I don't know if you had an opinion on what she said on the Dan Le Batard show.
Yeah, I think it was nice to hear that say what you want about Rossini, but she's very well sourced, has good connections, and I think that's very much true. I think I know you were trying to calm everybody down the day after that press conference, and you were absolutely right. But there was a small part, I think, in all of us where it was like, it doesn't feel great. But I think after, hearing some more stuff come out, certainly after hearing Joe Burrow after the loss against Baltimore, it was like, okay, he was just being very open, honest, and transparent. And I think he made this clear after the game that this was a football and a losing thing and not a city of Cincinnati thing. So wouldn't say I'm surprised, but it was good to kind of get that confirmed, certainly, from Joe Burrow. And it's still good to hear because people throw around the Andrew Luck stuff, and I think a lot of us, we sit there and act like it was us, right? And I'm like, well, if I got hurt a million times and I was constantly rehabbing, that'd be pretty tough. I don't know if I could do it. Joe Burrow's a little bit different than you and me are. So that was good to hear that from Rossini, and I think at the end of the day, it's positive.
Let me touch on this real quick about the Andrew Luck stuff. Take you back to 2019. And do you remember what it felt like when Andrew Luck announced that he was retiring before I think he was younger than Joe Burrow is right now. He's played less games than Joe Burrow has. I think, or right around the same. It was arguably the most shocking thing we'd heard in the NFL in years, in terms of like a player retiring early. And I get the similarities. I get that. All right, Andrew Luck, first overall pick, immediately turns around a franchise like Joe Burrow, gets banged up all the time, constantly rehabbing. It feels like he is on the entire city, the entire franchise is on his back. He can't do it anymore. I see the similarities. I just think that we are forgetting how rare. I don't think we'll see the Andrew Luck thing really ever happen again. To where someone that talented, someone who a franchise has their entire future circled around, is going to forego the rest of his career early because he just can't do it anymore. I think Joe Burrow is more dedicated. I don't want to say dedicated. I think Joe Burrow is truly obsessed with this sport. I think Joe Burrow is truly obsessed with football, and I can't foresee him retiring early. I can't foresee him retiring until he's in his mid-30s. He'll be 30 next season. I just think that the Andrew Luck thing, I get why everyone is concerned. I get why everyone wants to be like, this is going to be Andrew Luck 2.0. I don't think we're ever going to see the Andrew Luck thing ever again. I really do not. I just can't foresee it happening with someone as high marketed, and I get all the similarities. I do not see it. So, all right. It's Wednesday. We do this every single Wednesday. We scour the internet for all the questions that we had. I even put in our Discord, like, hey, anyone got some more questions? We're kind of pulling them in, and we did get a couple of questions. I scoured a few of them, a lot of local questions, a lot on our opinions, and I think there was one holiday question. But without further ado, it is Wednesday's mailbag here on Off the Bench. Read Mouse, Stone, Shield. Stone, what is the first question in the mailbag?
All right, here we go. First question comes in from Colton Melman. Am I saying that right, you think?
Melman.
Yep. Cool. All right, with the
Baden
news.
Rams legend.
Oh, he's one of your guys.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, all right.
St. Pete's legend, too.
With the news of us being stuck with Zach Taylor till 2027 and Joe Burrow has an opt-out after the 2027 season, will Joe force himself out of Cincy after 2027 if we continue to fail? Now, we were talking about this. That's a team option. Right, so he's still going to be, as far as I understand it, he can't get out of it, but
Correct.
The team can, and he will be here through 2029.
From what we understand, please correct us in the chat if we are wrong, Colton. This was sent over Discord. It is our understanding that is a team option, that the Bengals can opt out of that contract after the 2027 season, not Joe Burrow, as we previously said on this show. So the question still presents itself. If this team continues to fail over the next 2 years, because it seems like we're going to be saddled in with Zach Taylor for another 2 years, if that's the case, will Joe Burrow push the envelope and ask to go out of Cincinnati? I've planted my flag in the idea that I don't think Joe Burrow is Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer now for 15 years, 20 years, every single time that it seems like there's a microphone in front of his face, he's going to be bashing the Cincinnati Bengals organization. And I get it. We're a third-rate organization here in the NFL. We're not second, we're not first, we're a third-rate organization here. But I think Joe Burrow is more committed to this city than Carson Palmer. You got to remember Carson Palmer was from California, went to USC, he was across the country, is not from where he was from. Joe Burrow grew up 3 hours from here. Like, his city is Ohio. So I think there is a portion of he's cool with staying here for the time being. I do speculate. Now, for in speculation here, because I guess this whole question is speculative. I do speculate that when we get to the end of Joe Burrow's current contract, the Bengals will be pushing for an extension. And if the Bengals are not going to the Super Bowl, winning playoff game, just being a successful team, doesn't even need to be that, like we were in 21-22 when we got this extension done the first time. If we're just not winning the North and winning playoff games, if that's not the case, then I expect Joe Burrow to play out his contract and not talk about an extension. And we might get to the final year of that contract, and Joe Burrow sits down with the front office, and he goes, I've said this before, he'll sit down and go, I'm committed. I signed a contract that I'm going to play for the Cincinnati Bengals till this contract is over. I'm a man of my word in that regard, but I intend fully on being a free agent at the end of this season. The market for free agent quarterbacks will reset. He'll be the biggest free agent quarterback since, Peyton Manning. So I think that we might get to the final year of Joe Burrow's contract, and the Bengals will have that conversation with Joe, and then they'll go, I'm just letting you guys know this in case you want to shop me around. I intend to play out this contract. I will sign an extension with someone else if you trade me somewhere else. I don't think he's going to ask for a trade. I think he would say, I don't plan on signing an extension here. I'll play for you. I will sign an extension somewhere else if you can get the right fit for me. It'd be the Rams, Vikings, wherever it is. I think that's a case. Maybe that's a copped-out, but I do intend Joe Burrow to be here for the end of his contract. But that final year is where it might get really, really dicey. Stone, I don't know if you have an opinion on what I just said or on this question entirely.
Yes. I think, once figuring out that, after 2027 there isn't a player option for him to get out and he's going to be under contract through 2029, I don't think as a fan we should even be worried about that right now. There's still several more years of Joe Burrow being the quarterback, and we certainly can talk about, when the time comes, maybe he won't want another contract here in Cincinnati. That's worth discussing. But as far as him wanting out during this contract, that's not going to happen. But we do have some breaking news here on the show, Reader.
Oh, baby.
Tua Tagovailoa obviously has been struggling for the Miami Dolphins. He has been benched. The Bengals, of course, play the Miami Dolphins this week. They're not going with Zach Wilson. They are going with Quinn Ewers, former starter at Texas, 7th-round pick. Do you have an immediate reaction to that as you're finding out live here on the air?
No, I don't. This has kind of been speculated. It is, when you watch Tua, you can see the stats. You can see what the Dolphins do from week to week, especially when they're at home, when they're in warm weather. Tua's from Hawaii, played in Alabama. When you see him play in warm weather, you think this is not a star. This is a starter in the league. When he plays in cold weather, I saw it, was it last year or 2 years ago when they played the Chiefs in blistering cold weather in Kansas City, and he legitimately looked like one of the worst quarterbacks I've seen. Monday Night Football, he looked like a backup quarterback. He looked like you were watching a left-handed Jake Browning. Like, I hate to diss the man, but the fact that they've ever considered giving a $55 million contract to Tua Tagovailoa is insane to me. We talk about bubbles in the economy all the time. Oh, there was the housing bubble. There's the .com bubble. There's a bubble right now. There's the AI bubble. There's a quarterback contract bubble in this league. The fact that every starting franchise quarterback gets 55, like Joe Burrow deserves the top money in the league. Josh Allen deserves the top money in the league. Justin Herbert deserves the top money in the league. Jordan Love, you can even squint your eyes and stretch that truth, and you're like, yeah, Jordan Love deserves to be. Guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Tua, who are franchise, like you can hitch your wagon to those guys and win games, as we've seen the Dolphins do. The Cardinals really haven't, but at one point the Cardinals 4 years ago were like 9-0, made the postseason. You can hitch your wagon to those guys, but the fact that they get $55 to $60 million is absolutely insane. And eventually, these teams are just going to have to go, listen, we want to keep you around here. We like what we're doing here. We think we can win playoff games with you, and I think Tua can win playoff games as long as it's not in the cold, if he's in a dome. But the fact that he got $55 million is absolutely insane for the Miami Dolphins, and now they're seeing it. I don't know how they get off of this contract. You're probably going to have to trade away draft capital just with Tua just to get someone to take it on. And it's going to have to be a bad team. But initial reaction, I didn't think Quinn Ewers was very good in college. I know he won some games. Guys, if I'm being honest with you, I genuinely, I promise you guys, this was a real thing that I did this morning. I talk about the Bengals for 5 hours plus every single week, and then when we do the live show, that's another 5. Like, I talk about the Bengals so much. I genuinely had to look up who they were playing this week. Like, I did not remember it off the top. I knew that they played the Dolphins, Cardinals, and Browns to round out the year. I didn't know if they were taking on Arizona, or I didn't know if they were playing Miami. I literally looked up today who they were playing. That's just to give you where I'm at, checked out in terms of the Bengals schedule. I'm still locked in on where this Bengals offseason's going to go and all these things, but I was pretty checked out. But I don't have. What do you have a reaction on Quinn Ewers starting?
I think your chances of winning went up. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? Certainly could impact your draft pick. I think you got to find out if you're Miami what you have in him. Because the Dolphins, when they started playing better football here recently, they were kind of going away from Tua. Mike McDaniel kind of getting back to his roots, started running the football more. Devon Achane is an unbelievable player. He's shown that over the course of the past few weeks, but says a lot. They're going to go with the youngster and Ewers over a guy like Zach Wilson, who's been their backup throughout the entirety of the season. But the line was 2.5. I don't know if it's moved already. I'm sure it will move a little bit. But if you're the Bengals, I think you got to feel better about your chances of winning. But then again, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Correct. I would argue that it's a bad thing. I'd argue that it's a bad thing because I'm trying to get the Bengals and Duke Tobin and this god-awful front office as good of an opportunity. Sometimes as a fan, as a human being, you got to accept what where you're at in life. And where we're at in life is we're having a de facto GM in Duke Tobin for the time being, and we're going to have Zachary Taylor going to be our head coach for the next few years. So I want to put them in the best position to succeed, because if I have to go through another season like I've had to go through this year, I'm going to gouge my eyes out. Next mailbag.
All right, here we go. Transitioning away from the Bengals here for a second, and this comes in from Tasden Bailey, friend of the show, of course. With Schwarber being gone, Adolis Garcia and other free agents have been signed. The Reds' options are dwindling. Do you think they'll make a big splash before the end of the offseason? Tasden, thank you for your question.
Thanks, Tasden. Please don't sue us. Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I check into free agents, and obviously the Kyle Schwarber thing was encapsulating people's imaginations here in the town for a big reason. Like, that would have been an absolutely huge signing, probably the biggest signing that the Reds have had in quite some time. So some other fits were like Adolis Garcia, who signed for $10 million in a one-year deal. If the Reds could have got that would have been great. Obviously, they didn't. He goes to Philadelphia along with Schwarber. There's some other fits. There's still guys out there. Ryan O'Hearn, I believe, is still around. Reese Hoskins, who's had a really, really nice career. I think he could do some really nice things at Great American Ballpark. And I know that the Reds are in talks with guys like Brandon Lau, or is Nathaniel Lau. It's one of the Laus from the Tampa Bay Rays, and Ketel Marte. But no, I don't think the Reds are going to make some big splash. At the end of last year, in the offseason, do you remember what the big splashes were for the Reds? It was trading for Gavin Lux, who was the second prospect in baseball just a few years prior. Couldn't find himself on the field for the Dodgers. They got Austin Hayes for $5 million, and they traded away Jonathan India for Brady Singer. Those were the big moves. And those were good moves almost across the board. Like Austin Hayes, Gavin Lux, Brady Singer was a pretty good move. Obviously, Jonathan India has floundered in Kansas City. Those were moves that fit kind of the MO of what the Reds have to do to succeed. So no, do I think there's going to be some signing that the rest of the league, the NL Central, is going to go like, oh, here come the Redlegs? No, I do not. I think it's going to be guys like I think I saw Charlie Goldsmith put out a post that the best fit for the Reds in terms of money and what he can bring to the team was Austin Hayes. No, I don't think the Reds are going to make a big signing. That doesn't mean that they can't have a good free agency. I don't think that means that they're going to have a bad offseason. I think this team could still be viable in the NL Central and make the postseason as they did last year. But no, I don't think there's going to be some big, wow, look at the Reds. They're coming to play this offseason. What about you, Stone?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they've kind of said that, right? It was kind of a one-off for Kyle Schwarber. That's what ticked me off was that, the whole point of it was to drive ticket sales. And as you pointed out, that wasn't really going to be a long-term thing. Maybe the first couple of weeks they would have sold a few more tickets, but long-term it really wouldn't have done much for the ticket sales. But, yeah, the Reds aren't going to sign it. You're going to see signings like we saw yesterday. The Caleb Fergusons of the world, maybe there'll be one or two more guys like that, and they're going to be relying on Matt McClain bouncing back, which Tito thinks is going to happen. They're going to rely on Spencer Steer starting out a little bit better, being more consistent. They're going to rely on Ellie De La Cruz taking another step. They're going to rely on TJ Friedel trying to improve off what he did last year, and it's going to be a lot more of the same. And, we'll see. I think all those players have some promise in them, but is that going to be enough to let them compete for the NL Central title? I don't know. I've always loved Cody Bellinger. I love watching him swing the bat. Right, he's one of my favorite players.
He's got a pretty
watch.
swing.
I think my favorite swing in the game right now. But the Reds aren't going to go after a guy like Cody Bellinger. Do you have any idea where he ends up?
Cody Bellinger is kind of the big outside of the Japanese players that are going to come in here. Which, by the way, I think I saw someone say, maybe someone put this in the Discord. The right-handed hitting, slugging. Japanese player that's going to come on who struggles with velo, hit 50 home runs. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce his name until I hear it said. But he is suggested as a fit for the Reds, which I don't think they're going to get him. But that would be an interesting move. Cody Bellinger is the big question because they're not sure what he's going to get. He's a great defender. He's still young. I think he's like 30 years old. Like, he's not like 33, 34 like Schwarber was. And he has a great year. And obviously, if you have a ballpark that kind of is copacetic with his game plan, like Cody Bellinger didn't fit really well in Wrigley Field because Wrigley Field, it's 360 down the line. It's the longest right field line in baseball. But he goes to New York Stadium or Yankee Stadium, and that's a short porch. He comes here to Great American Ballpark, that's a short porch. He bombed 35 home runs. No, I think he's going to get like 6-7 year deal. I think he's going to get probably some of the most guaranteed money this offseason. Is that crazy? Dylan Cease got 200. Maybe he doesn't top that, but he could get like a 6-7 year deal because he's got a good glove. He's athletic. He's lefty, but the Reds aren't in the Cody Bellingers. That's nowhere near where the Reds are going to go. He's going to go to a team like the Yankees or something along those lines.
Yeah. That's a couple days in a row you've said copacetic. I like that.
You like copacetic?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were saying lexicon earlier, too. You've got some good words
so,
in that vocab.
So my vocabulary, I don't read as much as I should, but I listen to a history podcast. I'll give them a pub here. It's a great podcast. The rest is history. They're a couple of English blokes. And when I listen to them, my vocabulary, I normally hear a word there, and I'm like, I can't wait to throw that one out on the show. Yeah. That's where I get some.
That's good.
From.
I took notice. Thanks. All
All
right, next mailbag question. Reed, your college football knowledge is noted and respected.
Yes, it is.
Who do you have winning the college football playoff? I guess we can hear Stone's opinion, too. And that comes in from the player formerly known as Mouse Cop.
It is well known.
Wait, is that Mouse Cop or Tasden?
It is the player formerly. Man, you dropping a conspiracy live on the show? You dropping a chat conspiracy live on the show? I ain't touching that one with a 35-foot pole. I will say this. Everyone does, A, know how in tune I am with college football, and B, they respect my opinion when it comes to college football. Everyone that watches this show, everyone that knows me, knows those two things. So who do I, Nicholas Reed Mouse, believe will win the college football playoff this year? Probably Ohio State. Probably be the same thing that happened last year to where they have a terrible loss. It wasn't a terrible loss losing to Indiana, but a bad loss. I still think Ohio State has by far the best roster. And we saw this last year. I think we're going to see the same story play out again, where they'll pretty much wipe the floor with pretty much everyone they see. I am very, very intrigued to see how Indiana does. And if Indiana wins the college football playoff, I have to restructure my opinion on the sport as a whole. Because part of the reason that I've always disliked it is it's the same big dogs up there every single year. And with the college football playoff, the fact that you can lose a couple games and still have a great season, still be locked in, still have high aspirations, and the fact that a team like Indiana, who is one of the worst teams historically in the sport, can win a national championship in year 2 of a head coach, in year 3 of NIL, in year 2 of the 12-team college football playoff, I have to rethink everything I think about that. So I'm hoping it's Indiana. I think it's going to be Ohio State.
Yeah, going to do this whole segment on my show, but we'll give the winner here real quickly on Off the Bench. I don't think the first round's going to be very compelling. I think 1 year maybe we'll get an upset. It's not going to happen. James Madison's not going into Autzen and winning. Tulane and Ole Miss already played. Ole Miss beat the crap out of them by 35 points. Maybe the A&M Miami game's compelling, but that's probably the only one that has much of a chance, in my opinion, besides, of course, Alabama and Oklahoma, which will be played on Friday night. Ohio State, clearly the best team on paper. We talk a lot about on paper, especially when we're talking about the Cincinnati Bearcats, but Ohio State is a very, very good team. We understand that. They won it all last year. I think they're better this year than they were last year, despite what transpired in Indianapolis during the Big Ten championship. But I've got the Georgia Bulldogs winning this year. Kirby Smart, I think he gets a 3rd national championship. That defense, what Glenn Schumann has done over the course of this year, has been really, really impressive. First couple of weeks of the season, it didn't look like a Kirby Smart defense, right? They were giving up a lot of points. They were giving up a lot of chunk plays. They weren't getting off the field on 3rd down. That has changed. You saw them play probably their best game against Alabama in the SEC title game. I think that continues. Glenn Schumann, by the way, would be my top target if I'm the Michigan Wolverines. I think Georgia's about to put a run together. But if they find themselves in a high-scoring affair, if they match up against Ohio State in the 2nd round and have the 3rd round, I guess, the semifinals, and have to score a lot of points, that could be an issue for them. But I'll go with the Dogs here at this point.
Two things that I have to say.
Go ahead.
One is you suck up. You're such a. I see what you're doing. You are sucking up to the boss. You know, Trace is a diehard Georgia fan.
He is.
You are a suck up. Oh, don't even give me that. Don't even give me that. Oh yeah. Well, I get what you're. Disgusting. Secondly,
it's not as disgusting as Ohio State, and you would.
That is true. It's about. Well, speaking of disgusting, it's about time they start sacrificing goats and putting pentagons or whatever you call those satanic rituals that they do up there in Columbus this time of year with Les Wexner and the crew. Someone put in the chat. RM says people like Reed have been shouting for parity in college football. Now it's close. Reed doesn't like it. I disagree. I said this is what I like. Like I don't like the same. I've said you could put me in cryo sleep, wake me up in 20 years. I guarantee Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama are still at the top of the dogs. I don't know if that's necessarily true now. I don't know. I think we're going to see some big dogs get knocked off like Nebraska did 25 years ago. I think we're going to see that going forward here in college football playoff. It's piqued my interest. It's peaked. What's Django? First you had my attention, now you have my interest. So those are my 2 takes. Next mailbag.
All right, here we go. This comes in from AJ Worse. Appreciate this.
Look at the chat. Chat, get in the mailbag.
Yes. Sending in those DMs. We appreciate it. Fire in the DMs, right? Get in there and get your questions in. The Chiefs are eliminated. Forgive me if you've been asked this question before, but do you think they'll be contenders next year? That comes in from AJ. AJ, of course, has a very soft spot for the Kansas City Chiefs.
He does. AJ does love the Kansas City Chiefs. I made a bet with Everett Henry. I made a bet with him last year that the Chiefs would be in the AFC Championship game. I won that. He bought me a pitcher of beer. I owe him a pitcher of beer this year. I think I owe him 2 pitchers of beer now because I said that they'll be back in the AFC Championship game. Because, listen, I'm a slave to seeing what I've seen. And every year that Patrick Mahomes has been a starter in this league, he's made the AFC Championship game. This is the first year in which that will not be the case. So am I going to just say, no, that's the end of it? It's done, baby. Chiefs, cancel them. They're done. Never again. Never again with Andy Reid and Patrick. No, I'm not doing that. Until I see it happen consistently. And I get there's a serious Travis Kelce's not Travis Kelce anymore. Chris Jones is getting older. They haven't been able to solve the dilemma of losing skill players like Tyreek Hill like they had a few. Now they've done fine without Tyreek Hill, don't get me wrong, but they have been unable to solve those problems. They've been unable to shore up the offensive line ever since we got Orlando Brown, baby. So I am cautious, but I will say, yeah, I think they'll still be contenders next year. I need to see it for 2 straight years before I'm like, all right, that was the end of it all. So until I see it more drawn out than I've seen it this year, I'm still not going to count out Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like fools did with Brady and Belichick, like fools did before, I'm not going to do that with Reid and Mahomes. 2 years ago, people were writing them off. I was right then. Last year, they were writing them off. I was right then. This year, they're writing them off. You guys were right. We'll see. We'll have the rubber match next year. Your opinion on this?
Well, is Mahomes going to be ready to go to start the year?
I don't know. I mean, the ACL injury, yeah, right? Like, it's going to be it's going to be a shotgun start.
Yeah. I think he's got that Burrow in him where he'll work like a madman to try to get back. But it's going to look different. I mean, look, if you talk about the Patriots dynasty, and there's no denying that the Chiefs have been a dynasty, it's fair. Sometimes that word gets thrown around too much, and it ticks me off a little bit, but the Chiefs were a dynasty, right? That you can't argue that. But there's different layers to the dynasty, like the Patriots. There were several different versions of the New England Patriots. I think this version of the Kansas City Chiefs is definitely done. We'll see what Travis Kelce does. Maybe they bring him back on a 1-year deal. I'm not going to say he's fallen off a cliff, but clearly he's not the best tight end in the National Football League or one of the best tight ends of all time. That's not how he plays anymore these days. And also they have questions on their defense, like Chris Jones. Do they need to trade him this offseason? I think that could be something that they have to explore. Xavier Worthy, everybody thought it was going to be this home run smash hit when they picked him, but he doesn't really offer them much of a vertical threat down the field. He's kind of just a borderline gadget guy. Pacheco's gotten banged up a lot. He started off his career out of Rutgers really, really strong, but he's certainly come down to earth, and he's had some injuries as well. So I think they're going to have to retool this thing. I think they're going to have to head in a different direction. I think they're going to have to move off some players. Still have some foundational pieces, certainly. Karlaftis is going to be a factor going forward. You would think Trent McDuffie's going to stick around in their secondary there as well. But Mahomes is one of those guys where it's like, well, as long as he's out there, they have a chance. And as far as contenders, like, oh, they're going to win 14 games and be the number 1 seed, no, but I think they're going to be contenders for the playoffs, and it's still the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs and a team that you wouldn't want to face. Very interested to know when Mahomes will be able to come back. I think that's key. But if he's ready to go in week 1, I think you'd probably be a fool to say they're going to miss the playoffs again.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. And before we get to the next mailbag, Alex Wallace actually asked me an interesting question that I actually had to look this up. He said, how excited is Reed about Jade Cargill being on the field during the Reds Hall of Fame ceremony? Jade Cargill is the current WWE Women's Champion, and she is married to Brandon Phillips. Did not know that. So that's kind of neat. I'm a quiet closet wrestling guy from time to time. I think it's fun to watch. I think it's fun to relive my youth, which I was a big John Cena guy back in the day. But yeah, that's cool. That's going to be cool.
You watching the Jake Paul fight this weekend?
I will not. I don't know who's he fight.
Anthony Joshua. You
know
who that is.
You don't know Anthony Joshua?
No, I'm asking you. Do you know?
Yeah,
okay,
boxer.
yeah. So that's kind of significant. I might take a peek.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
Next question. It feels like the city of Cincinnati has been on a 4-week bender of gut punches, bad news, bad press, bad stories, and bad performances after one another. I need some positive news regarding our local teams. Can you find some? Comes in from Molly.
Thanks, Molly. You know what Molly is? The queen of positivity in the chat. So here's what I'll do. I'll rattle off, just off the top of the dome, one positive news after another regarding our local teams. We'll start with the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds just got Caleb Ferguson. Caleb Ferguson fills a big need for the Reds in a lefty specialist. Brent Suter, who was kind of their only lefty specialist last year, was kind of reserved to mop-up roles and long relief roles, and isn't what Caleb Ferguson's going to be this year. So I think Caleb Ferguson is a really important piece to this Reds' success this year. Is he as important as whoever the bat's going to be that they're going to get or presumably think they're going to get? No. but I think he's a really, really nice signing for the Reds. That's positive news there. Positive news revolving around the Cincinnati Bearcats. Not a whole lot to come around, but the roster did get better today. I think it's kind of a farce of a story. The fact that you can someone from your team, you foregone your team, but your season's going so bad that you're like, all right, I guess we gotta throw up this Hail Mary. But your roster is significantly better today with Jizzle James. We'll see how Wes Miller and his esteemed coaching crosses that bridge. You want positive news regarding the Xavier Musketeers. Xavier Musketeers starts Big East play tonight. They play Creighton. They're favorites. They have the capacity to be 10-3 going into that New Year's Eve game at Centos Center against UConn, kind of riding hot. I think they, if they get there, that'll outperform expectations of where pretty much every Xavier fan thought they were going to be going into that game. So that's positive news. Regarding the Cincinnati Bengals, you want positive news regarding them? The season's almost done. You only got to watch 3 more games. That's the positive news that I'll give you. Stone, I don't know if there's any one thing that you want regarding positive news.
I think the Ferguson thing is real. Like, that's, you needed a lefty to come in, offer some relief pitching. He's had success. You pointed out the statistics early about doesn't give up many home runs. That's something you need in Great American Small Park, as you said. So I think that's really positive. As far as the UC Bearcats go, the football team, you lost your quarterback, your coach is in over his skis. You don't have enough money, so
I tried to stay as positive as I could. There's not a lot of positive
I don't know
news.
what you can say about the football team. You're in a bowl game, right? You get to go play in the bowl game, so I guess maybe that's
Yippee!
Positive.
Bowl games, baby!
Xavier's favored tonight against Creighton. I think Xavier's a better team than Creighton right now. Going into the year, you would have said no shot that Xavier's going to be favored in this game, but Creighton lost their best player. They're clearly struggling replacing Kalkbrenner and others, and Xavier's playing better basketball right now, so I think that's certainly positive. The Bengals, as you said, the season's almost over. Quinn Ewers is starting, so you got a better chance.
We're playing a worse quarterback.
Yeah. Zach Taylor's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry. We're doing good news, not bad news. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you pretty much touched on it all here at this point. But
yeah, no, it's that's all the good news that we could find here. So yeah, thank you. That was a really good question. I'm glad we could give you some positive news here on Wednesday, December the 17th, as things have seemingly gotten worse and worse here in town. I just want them to get better and better. I feel like we're always saying they're getting worse and worse. I just want them to get better and better one time while either hosting this show or in the history of Chatterbox. Next question.
All right, here we go. The holidays are around the corner. It's my favorite time of the year. The music, the lights, the family, the movies. I love it all. Do you have a favorite holiday movie and or tradition? And that comes in again from Tasden Bailey or Mouse Cop, one of the two. It says
Man,
Tasden.
I love how you're doubling down on that conspiracy. Doubling up, Tasden. Doubling up. Yeah, I'm a huge Christmas guy. I don't care about Halloween. Thanksgiving's fine. It's cool. But Christmas, I put up my Christmas lights the 1st of November. My Christmas tree's been up for 6 weeks. Now, the one thing that I do got to get better at is I got to be more of a generous gift giver. I've got to be better at that. I oftentimes, I like making people happy, but I'm also a procrastinator, so I get to the end. Question was, do I have a favorite movie or tradition or anything like that? I do have a favorite movie. I do have a favorite Christmas movie, and it is The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. I believe it was 1993, 1994. I think that is the best Christmas movie of all time. And I will take no slander on any other opinions. The Santa Claus is my favorite Christmas movie. It's been that way for 20 years. And as Christmas movies kind of go, once you found one as a kid that you like, you pretty much hold on to it for dear life. I have a hot take when it comes to Christmas movies. Not a big Elf guy. I don't think Elf's very good. So do you have a favorite Christmas movie? Please tell me it's Elf. Is it really?
Yes, it is. Watched Elf over the weekend. Enlighten me. What don't you like about Elf? Well, let me start with this. Do you think Will Ferrell's funny?
I think Will Ferrell is very funny. Anchorman's I think outside of Superbad, my favorite comedy of all time.
Superbad's outstanding.
Superbad, man, talk about a movie that I can't. my wife watched it and she was cracking up the entire time, which made me happy. But back to Christmas movies. The reason I don't like Elf, I think I saw it too late. I saw it the first time I watched it. I didn't watch it when I was 7 or 8. I watched it the first time when I was 14. 13. Like I didn't watch it right when it came out. So I got a little late to it, and I already got in my mind what my favorite Christmas movie is. I'm very sentimental. My mom passed away when I was 6 years old. She loved Christmas. Yeah. Absolutely adored Christmas. So any memories that I have regarding her, I hold near and dear to my heart. One of them is watching the Santa Claus. So that's part of the reason, is why. But back to the elf thing. I don't know why. I'm not a big elf guy.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I'll have to watch that. You said, what's it called? Santa Claus?
You've never seen the Santa Claus? The Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Santa Claus. And that's Buzz Lightyear?
That is Buzz Lightyear. That's right. Tim the Toolman. I can't do it.
Yeah. No, I'll have to watch that. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
You'll like it.
Okay.
I think you'll like it. I think you'll really, really like it. And the Santa Claus 2, the Mrs. Claus. You can skip the Santa Claus 3, the Escape Claus, although it is campy and fun.
Yeah.
But next question.
All right. Blackmore, what is the absolute biggest need for the Bengals this off season? Dun, dun, dun.
The biggest need for the Cincinnati Bengals this offseason. Stop me if you heard this one before. The biggest need for the Bengals this offseason is to hire a general manager. Not a de facto general manager. Hire a general manager. The best general manager in the league is Howie Roseman. He makes $8 million a year. John Lynch, I think, makes $4 million a year for the 49ers. You can get a general manager in here for the same price. I saw someone tweet this as Geno Stone. I know that it's hard to find these guys. It's not like there's like some – they're not as in the limelight as coaches or players to where like this – I think this will fit our system. Like you kind of have to read between get in the weeds to find a good general manager. But there is someone out there, anybody out there, that can come in here and give them legitimate power in the organization. You can keep Duke Tobin. You can keep Zach Taylor. I need a fresh set of eyes on this organization. I cannot go into next season running it back with everyone that is still here. I need a fresh set of eyes with serious power, not just some special teams coach or the linebacker. I can't do that. I need a fresh set of eyes on this organization. If you got to go the consulting way, I don't care. Just give me someone that's not Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor and Al Golden and Dan Pitcher making all the decisions about who comes to this team. I need someone new. They need to hire a general manager, a real one. You can keep Duke Tobin, but get me a general manager. Your thoughts on the one need that they need this offseason?
I agree, but I'll operate under the assumption that that's not going to happen. So I will go with the safety position, which is what I said this time last year there as well, and they neglected it. I understand, like, when you rank the important positions in the NFL, quarterback, tackle, edge rusher, usually at the top of the list. Safety may be at the bottom of the list, but when you have that much incompetency at that position, it rears its ugly head and costs you games time and time again. So Geno Stone got to get out. Maybe they hang on to battle. They probably will. I would move off of him there as well and bring in either a draft pick that can come in and start immediately. By the way, plenty of rookies at the safety position starting in the NFL this year that you had opportunities to pick that you did not. Or bring in a free agent, trade for somebody, but the back end of your defense has to get cleaned up. I'll say the safety spot.
Okay.
Final question.
Final one.
Comes in from Michael Ackley. Who do you have making it to the conference championships this January?
I don't think we've ever talked about this. I don't think we've ever talked about this on this show. That's a good question. That really is, because when I look at this postseason – in years prior, and I've made this point on the show before, when you looked at previous postseasons, you could pretty much write in one team from each conference. Previously, you could pretty much always write in the Chiefs. Chiefs are going to be in the AFC Championship game. Who are they going to play against? In the previous few years in the NFC, you could go like, okay, 49ers, they're going to make the conference championship. Okay, Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to make the conference championship. Okay, we're going to have name another one. This year, there's great teams in this league. The Broncos are playing great. I think the Patriots and the Bills are really good in the AFC. The NFC obviously has the Rams and the Seahawks, and the Eagles are still pretty viable. But I think this is the first time in a long time that we look at it's certainly on the AFC side, but both sides where we go like you can pretty much pencil in one team. Now you can give a pretty good guess. Like you could give a pretty good. I think the Rams are probably going to make the NFC Championship game, but you're not going to pencil them in. At least not with Penn. So, who do I think will make the AFC Championship game? Because I've learned that quarterbacks win in this league, coaching and quarterbacks win in this league, I'll still have the Bills in the AFC Championship game. I don't have the playoff format in front of me, so this might be completely contradictory of how it can even happen. Who do I have them playing in the AFC Championship game? Give me an AFC East. Give me Pats and Bills in the AFC Championship game. Once again, I don't even know if that's possible, but that's just me riding off the rip. Pats, Bills on one side. NFC, give me the Rams, because I think Matt Stafford and Sean McVay are a force to be reckoned with. If you ask me who's going to win the Super Bowl today, I'd probably say the Rams. And they will play the Chicago Bears. Rams, Bears, Pats, Bills. What about you, Stone? You're grinning over there.
Yeah, your love for Caleb Williams once again found its way out there with that comment. But I agree with the Bills. If not now, when? That's kind of how you feel. Like no Lamar, well, maybe no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, no Patrick Mahomes. I understand the Bills aren't as good as they have been over the course of the past few years, but based on the landscape of the AFC, probably their best opportunity to get the conference championship. Again, I don't know if this is possible. Don't have all the seeding and stuff in front of me right now, but I'll go Bills, Texans.
Okay, Texans are playing. No, you could argue no one's playing better than the Texans right now.
Yeah. Defensively, best defense in the league. Stroud, since his injury, is coming back, delivering the football. I'll go Bills, Texans. I'm with you. I got the Rams. Devontae, we'll see if he plays Thursday. That's not great. And speaking of injuries, I've got them playing the Green Bay Packers despite losing Micah Parsons and Christian Watson getting banged up. But I think you're going to see LaFleur help elevate that team. And I also think you're going to see Jordan Love play really good football as well. So I'll go with those four.
Okay. Final thing I'll say before I hop off here. I'm reading the chat, catching up on this. The Donta Johnson said, real Bengals fans don't want it to just make championships. They want to win them. And they were referring to my take yesterday about how the Bengals just want to attend the dance. They just want to attend the prom. Yes, I want to win championships as a Bengals fan. Of course. It's the point of all of this is to get there. Well, it's the second point. The first point is to be entertained. But the point of it all, and there's nothing more entertaining than winning championships. The bar for where I'm at as a Bengals fan is it's not win championships right now. It's, hey, let's get into the postseason because I just want Joe Burrow to play in them because I think we can beat anybody. So I just want to compete there. So, yeah, I want to win championships, but every team has different goals. Like everyone's crown goal is to win the championship, but you got to be realistic with yourself and like, hey, let's walk before we run. Let's get in the postseason. We haven't been in the postseason in 3 years. The goal before Joe Burrow took over in 2020 was, can he win a playoff game? Because we hadn't seen it in 30 years. Go to the Super Bowl, then it changed. Hey, let's make this a consistent thing. We go to the AFC Championship the next year. And then, all right, well, can we make this? No, we haven't been back since. So, yeah, I just want to go to the prom. Because I think once we get to the prom, no one's got better dance moves than Joe Burrow. He's going to be out there dancing with the prettiest girl. Because, I think we can beat anybody when they get to the postseason. Stone Shield Show coming right up. Thank you so much, Stone. Thank you to everyone that actually sent in the questions this week. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be covering some college basketball. There'll probably be more Bengals news. Paul Fritchner will be on the show tomorrow. Keegan Nickerson will be on Friday. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow here on Off the Bench.
we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. We are here. We are live. It is Wednesday, December 17th, almost Christmas time here at the show. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Plenty of stuff I want to touch on today. Lots of Bengals stuff we got to discuss. Obviously, Dehner Jr. made some headlines yesterday covering the Bengals for The Athletic, of course, saying, yep, Zach Taylor, Duke Tobin, Al Golden, all three probably going to be returning for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2026. We broke that down yesterday. That segment is out on YouTube right now. You can, of course, find it in podcast form there as well. Not surprised, but at the same time, still a little bit disappointed, certainly, that Duke Tobin is probably going to be back, calling the shots, overseeing this draft process for the Cincinnati Bengals come April and draft time. But we'll talk a little bit about the Bengals. Do have some breaking news that we want to touch on. Tua Tagovailoa has been benched by the Miami Dolphins. He will not start against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Instead, it will be Quinn Ewers. Of course, started for a couple of years at Texas, was supposed to be this hotshot guy, was at Ohio State for a cup of coffee, was supposed to be the next great thing. Was a solid college quarterback, but ended up sliding all the way to the 7th round in the NFL draft. He's going to have an opportunity to make his first career start. Zach Wilson has been the backup throughout the duration of this year, but Ewers is going to leapfrog him and get the opportunity to play against this Bengals defense, which if you're Quinn Ewers, if you're a rookie quarterback, probably not a better defense to go against in your first career start here in the NFL. So we'll talk about Ewers. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Diana Rossini made some comments that were circulating on social media, kind of talking about Joe Burrow. We'll break those down as well. Jason Williams, who is a columnist over at the Inquirer. We'll try to get Jason on the show here at some point, but he had a piece yesterday kind of breaking down, the Bengals organization, they don't care what you think. And I think he hit the nail on the head there. So we'll break down some of what Jason had to say, as long as my thoughts on that there as well. Also, Jizzle James is going to return for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team. Kind of feels like a last-ditch effort for Wes Miller, kind of a Hail Mary. And we'll break down Jizzle returning. He'll be in action tonight against Alabama State. We'll talk about that. Also, our college football playoff predictions. We'll roll through the whole bracket, and I will give who I believe is going to be hoisting the trophy at the end of the day. That first game, by the way, is probably the best game. 8-9, Friday night, Alabama, Oklahoma in Norman. We'll do our preview later in the week, but we'll get through our predictions on today's show. Also, Arch Manning is going to be back at school next year. We'll break down some thoughts on that and some sports headlines. To close out today's show, Xavier in action tonight against Creighton. They are favored in that game. I think going into this year, you would say absolutely no shot. Xavier is going to be favored in that game over Creighton. Things have changed. Creighton's the best player, Jackson McAndrew. He is out. He is hurt. They have really struggled replacing Kalkbrenner and some of those other veteran guys that departed. McDermott's still a great coach, but not a ton to work with here this year. Xavier, 2.5-point favorites in the game tonight. They're in action at the Cintas Center, 6:30 tip. Also, as we mentioned, Cincinnati in action. They are 22.5-point favorites against Alabama State. Jizzle James back in the lineup. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll spend some time talking about Mike McDaniel for the Miami Dolphins as well. Phillip Rivers going to get another start Monday Night Football against the Niners. And also, and it's this time of year with college football kind of wrapping up, different obviously now with the 12-team playoff. There's still games on Saturday, but this is the time of the year you start to see some NFL games being played on Saturday as well. There's a good one Saturday night, Packers and Bears. We'll spend a little time discussing that as well. Appreciate everyone as always. Would invite you to hit that thumbs up icon if you haven't done so already. Something you should do for all of our videos here at Chatterbox Sports. We greatly appreciate it if you pull up one of our videos, whether it be a live show that we're doing or one of the segments on YouTube that goes out later in the afternoon. Just help us out. Hit that thumbs up icon right away, and that really does pay dividends for us here at Chatterbox Sports. And also, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We've got plenty of content going out at all times. Got plenty of live shows. Had some breaking news with the Reds yesterday. We'll talk about that. Reds signing Caleb Ferguson, left-handed pitcher, relief guy. Our Chatterbox Reds crew. Nobody covers the Reds like we do here at Chatterbox. They put out some content on that. That's on the channel. Go check it out. But always hit that subscribe button if you're new here. And we are well on our way to 22,000 subscribers. So I'm certainly looking forward to building what we're doing here at Chatterbox Sports and appreciate everybody that certainly taps in. All right, let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's start with the breaking news there as well. So, we're kind of getting ready for the show going, okay, how are we going to attack the Cincinnati Bengals here today? We've done the Duke Tobin stuff a lot. We've done the Zach Taylor stuff a lot. And then you get the clip from Rossini. You get the column from Jason Williams. All right, there's some stuff there. But then you get some big-time news. Quinn Ewers going to be making a start against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals play in Miami Miami. They go down to South Beach. They get away from Paycor Stadium, the city of Cincinnati. I think, when you're in a situation that the Bengals are in, this probably is a good thing, right? Just to go down, right, somewhere far away. You're going down to Florida, just you, just the team, and just kind of distance yourself from some of the distractions and some of the bad things that candidly are transpiring in the city of Cincinnati as it revolves around your organization. And you get some good news here, right? So I understand the fan base out there. The mindset probably has switched for a lot of folks, right? Going from, let's win games, let's try to get into the postseason, to, the Bengals are eliminated from the postseason. Let's lose and get as good of a pick as we possibly can. Well, as we've talked about several times here on this show, the fans can think that way and want those things to happen. Organization, players, coaches, they can't afford to go out there and do that. So it's big that Cincinnati goes in and tries to get a win against Miami. Miami, of course, has a better record, but I think the Bengals have technically the better team. Now, they haven't played like it for much of the year, as we know, with only 4 wins here at this point, but I think they have a better chance at winning going against a guy like Quinn Ewers as opposed to going against a guy like Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I'll be completely transparent here. I was a big Tua guy. He was an incredible college quarterback. We all know this. We all understand this. The heroics as a true freshman coming in for Jalen Hurts at halftime against Georgia and leading that team, that Alabama team with Nick Saban, that come-from-behind victory in the national title game was awesome, and then he kind of just took off from there. Had some injury concerns, obviously, at Alabama, and that kind of derailed his final year there as well, and that was kind of the big concern for Tua coming out was, okay, he's this undersized guy, doesn't have this big arm, has an injury concern, right? And he ends up going above Justin Herbert. I would have done the same thing in the moment, and I think we all know pretty obviously here at this point, Herbert should have gone right behind Joe Burrow and not Tua Tagovailoa. But it's been an up and down stretch for Tua. He starts out years really well when it's optimal conditions and he's down in sunny Miami, Florida. He can hit the back foot. He can get rid of the ball quickly when he had the speed of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. When Mike McDaniel first got to Miami, it was one of the most prolific offenses in the National Football League. That's just the case. And then things kind of went downhill as the season went on, and then they find themselves in these colder games, and they really, really struggle, right, throwing the football. And that was on display once again on Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Dolphins had gotten hot and actually were still fighting for their playoff lives in the game on Monday night, but their total operation and identity as a team totally shifted when they started having success. McDaniel, of course, was the run game coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. That's kind of how he cut his teeth in this league, right? He was always a run game guy, and then he got to Miami. He's like, I got Waddle and Tyreek Hill. We're slinging this son of a gun around, and that's what he did. But he kind of got back to his roots. I give him a lot of credit for doing that, and we talked about it on the show yesterday. McDaniel, he's a bit of a quirky guy, sometimes says some questionable things, not that necessarily alpha in the room, but I would probably keep Mike McDaniel based on what he has done over the course of the past few weeks. I think it's pretty safe to say here at this point they got a quarterback issue in Miami. So they changed their identity. They were running the football a lot more, having great success in the run game with Achane, which, by the way, we'll kind of get into this later in the week. That is a massive concern for the Cincinnati Bengals before we move into this game here on Sunday. But they didn't ask really Tua to do much, right? They were only throwing it, probably 20-ish times a game, not asking him to chuck it down the field, and they were having a lot of success running. And you can do that when, you get the ball early and you have success and you score points and you don't find yourselves behind multiple scores. That ended up not happening, of course, in the game Monday night against Pittsburgh. They had success moving the ball, but Tua just did some bad things in the game. He missed some easy throws, and it's so obvious. Aaron Rodgers is 42 years of age. I understand Aaron Rodgers has one of the best arms of all time, but just watching these two guys play quarterback, you're like, this guy's 42 years old, right? He's got a broken hand on his non-throwing arm. He's cutting it through the wind way better than Tua. And shoot, he's moving around way better than Tua there as well. When you have the limitations that Tua has, right? Height, arm strength, right? You have to have something to be able to overcome those traits, like athletic ability. He doesn't even have that as well. I don't know if it's the injuries that have added up. I don't know if he's put on some weight to try to help him stay more healthy, whatever the case is. But when he was at Alabama, he could move a little bit. I mean, he can't move at all here in the NFL. And I'm watching him try to escape the pocket, and Troy Aikman alluded to this on the broadcast where it's like, sometimes when Mahomes leaves the pocket or Burrow leaves the pocket, you get all excited. You go, oh, something awesome's about to happen right here. When Tua leaves the pocket, you go, oh, Lord, something horrible is going to happen for the Miami Dolphins offense. And that's just kind of been the story of this year for Tua and really the story of the past couple for him as well. So they decided to give him big-time money, and I kind of went on a rant about this the other day as well. It's like these organizations, these front offices, these general managers, they find themselves in a spot where their quarterback's rookie contract is done. The rookie quarterback played solid throughout the deal, and it's like, oh, let's just give him a ton of money. I don't understand why that always happens in the National Football League. It really confuses me, right? Why does he have to be one of the highest paid guys in the league just because you won some games with him as a rookie quarterback, right? Just evaluate the situation. Is he one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League? No, right? And don't overthink it. He's a short guy that can't really move and doesn't have a strong arm, and you play in a division where you got to go on the road with Buffalo, New York, and New England. Late in the year, it's going to be freezing cold, and if it's below 40 degrees, he hasn't won a single game in the National Football League, and they gave him a ton of money. Now, the GM, of course, has been fired since then, but I just don't get it. And the Kyler Murray stuff with Arizona, why? The Dehner Jr stuff when he was with the Giants, why? Yeah, you can have some success. You can win some games. You could keep the team afloat. Shoot, you could even get to the postseason. That doesn't mean you should be one of the top highest paid guys in the National Football League. So the Dolphins made a move to bench him, and I think they kind of had to at this spot. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say McDaniel was great. I think some of the stuff going on with their organization in the offseason was not good. You had other teams talking about the Miami Dolphins in these joint practices, like, hey, they don't know what the heck they're doing. I mean, what are they doing out here? They're, not on the same page. They got no organization, they got no leadership. That's an indictment on the coach, but you also have to evaluate the season. They started off really bad. People could have quit. People could have quit on Mike McDaniel. They rallied together, got some wins, found a new identity running the football, and it's pretty clear that there's some talent on this team, and they could win games. Not necessarily a playoff team, good enough to win games, and their quarterback's holding them back. So they make the move, bench Tua, go with Quinn Ewers. And I think this is a massive break for the Cincinnati Bengals, if you're talking about them winning football games, right? They have a better chance of winning against Quinn Ewers than they do against Tua Tagovailoa. Again, they're playing in Miami, right? So Tua probably would have played fine in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. But Zach Wilson has been the backup for the majority of his career. The majority of this season. For the Miami Dolphins, they leapfrog him, and they go with Quinn Ewers. Their rookie quarterback spent a couple of years as a starter at Texas. As I mentioned at the top of the show, was a top recruit, had a cup of coffee with Ohio State, ultimately decides to go back home and play for Texas. And look, I respect Quinn Ewers. I respect how he handles himself, how his teammates rallied around him, but it's very clear that he's not going to be an NFL starting quarterback, and I don't expect him to play particularly well in this game. If he does, it's probably going to be just general incompetency of the Bengals defensively, right? So I think there's already people speculating like, oh, this could be that Mike White game. We all remember that against the New York Jets several years ago where Ewers just kind of goes out there and balls out. I don't know if it's going to happen. Again, the Bengals defense stinks, of course, so maybe it will. But I remember just kind of watching him at Texas. The arm strength didn't end up developing, I think, the way a lot of people thought when he was first coming out of high school. The mechanics are really, really bad for Quinn Ewers. His lower half, we talked about how great Joe Burrow's lower half is, right, and how he's just always in line with his target. Everything is in sync. Everything is in order. Quinn Ewers is all over the place with his lower half, and he doesn't have the arm to overcome that like some of the other guys in this league do. And I expect him to make some inaccurate throws. I expect him to make some poor decisions in the game as well. And this is another great opportunity. We talked about the Bengals, how in that Buffalo game, get the ball, put some pressure on them immediately. I think that's kind of how you should operate here throughout the rest of the season. I've always been kind of a defer guy, get it to start the second half, but considering you're eliminated from the playoffs, like you got to try to get some wins here, and you got to start fast. I think if you start fast, you go down and score against Miami and put Quinn Ewers in a spot where he's got to throw the ball and can't just turn around and hand it off to Achane. I think you have an opportunity to separate yourselves in this game. So the Bengals against Tua were 2.5-point favorites. That's what it was this morning. I don't know if it has shifted off that. I think it should, right? It's a seventh-round quarterback making his first start in a game. So I would anticipate, this is a better situation for the Bengals to be in. But then, of course, there are other people out there that say, well, that's ridiculous. Why you want to lose these games. You want to have a better draft pick. I get that rationale. To me, that's not really something I process until like the last game of the year. And I've talked about this on the show this week. Zach said Joe's going to go the rest of the way. I'm not convinced that he will go that last game. Again, I've been banging the table. Play Joe Burrow, but sit him down for the Cleveland game, right? He doesn't need to play that last game. Try to win these next two. See where you're at, right? As far as draft pick goes, because it gets crazy. Like there's a bunch of teams that could be in contention for the first overall pick here. Crazy stuff happens here down the stretch, and it really flips where teams are picking. I don't really worry about that stuff until the final week of the year. But I'm not sitting down Joe Burrow just to get a better pick. I'm sitting him down because it's Myles Garrett and Cleveland on the other side. That's always a tough physical game. the last thing you want is Joe Burrow to get a serious injury the last week of the game, because now you're at the point of the year, and Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to be dealing with this a little bit too as well. If you get hurt this time of the year, it's not necessarily, we'll see you week 1 next year. That isn't, a guarantee. So if Joe Burrow were to get hurt against Cleveland, that's like, well, that could risk him being ready to go for the start of next year, and that would just be a complete disaster. I'd play him the next 2. I'd sit him down for Cleveland, and you can worry about a draft pick there at this point. I know fans want to probably lose the remaining 3 games here at this point, get a better pick. Wouldn't anticipate that happening. The Bengals, they're a bad team right now. They do losing things. They do bad things, as Joe Burrow, of course, has alluded to. But you would think that they should beat the Dolphins and the Cardinals, or at least pick up 1 win in that matchup. But it's, of course, the 2025 Cincinnati Bengals, so nothing is a guarantee here at this point. But some breaking news here this morning, as Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter for the Miami Dolphins against Cincinnati this week. A couple more Bengals things I want to hit before we move on to the Jizzle James stuff. Diana Rossini covers the NFL for The Athletic. She's well-sourced in the league, has a lot of good connections. Say what you want, about her and her reporting style, but I always, tend to trust when I see something that she brings to the table. And, a lot of us were kind of not hitting the panic button. It's funny watching this stuff nationally because we're so close to this. Obviously, you and me, we're not in the locker room. We're not really close. But as someone that, follows the team, right, talks to people, we have people on the show that cover the team, our beat reporters, right? It's just totally different, the connection and the understanding that they have and we have for this team as opposed to some of the national talking heads, right? They're just so disconnected, and people kind of ran with the Joe Burrow stuff and his comments, and, he was depressed, right? That's kind of what it seemed like. He was sad during his press conference this past week, and so many people nationally were like, he wants out of Cincinnati, and that obviously was aggressive and not true. Joe Burrow basically put a stop to that nonsense, and that was good to see. But, our headline on our thumbnail was not great, right? That's kind of how I felt. Not great. Not going to hit the panic button, not going to freak out, say he's leaving, but not great. Right? And Rossini came out and said that there's a couple new things that have come out about Joe Burrow. Apparently, he cut the cast off his foot himself. Didn't even have a doctor do it. And he was like, you know what, screw this. I'm cutting this thing off, and we're getting the rehab process underway. Joe Burrow, of course, is a very private person. That's been well documented. And apparently, he didn't really talk to anybody at all. He was just in the training room working his butt off, not cutting his hair either, and just kind of, when they would cut to Joe Burrow, when he started being on the sidelines more, he just looked like a kind of a lost puppy, I would say, and, he was doing everything in his power to come back, and I think in his mind, and we talked about this when he came back before Thanksgiving, in his mind, that psycho competitor that he is, he thought they were going to run the table and get into the playoffs, and I think some of the comments that you saw from Joe Burrow after the Buffalo game was the realization that, it's not going to happen, right? And we all had that realization a long time ago, earlier in the year, right? I had it after the Chicago Bear game. Joe didn't have that until the loss to Buffalo, so I think that's why you saw some of those comments come out the way that they did. And also, I think he's also annoyed with himself, if we're being honest here. Joe Burrow understands that he played his butt off, and it should have been good enough to win in Buffalo, despite the 2 interceptions that he threw. But at the end of the day, he understands if you go into Buffalo and play Josh Allen and throw 2 picks in the fourth quarter, I don't care how, weird they are or how unlucky they are or out of the norm they are. It's 2 interceptions on the road in Buffalo against Josh Allen in the fourth quarter. All right, you're not going to win games like that, and I think he understands that. He was a little bit annoyed with himself, right? And then, of course, after the Baltimore game, he said all the right things and was like, you know what, I got to play better. By the way, the PFF grades came out. That's not gospel by any stretch. That's not the end-all, be-all when you're talking about evaluating performances. I do think PFF is a great company, but there's some holes there. We all understand that. And we said this on the show. That was one of the worst games I have seen Joe Burrow play. He conducted an offense that scored 0 points. That's awful. But this isn't like, J.J. McCarthy stuff, right? Of course, before the Dallas game, right? This isn't Desmond Ridder stuff, Jake Browning stuff, right? It was just horrible for Joe Burrow standards. It wasn't like some god-awful game in the history of the National Football League, and we all understood that and said that. But for Joe Burrow standards, we hold him to this height of, hey, you got to be the best quarterback in the National Football League or a top 3 at minimum quarterback in the National Football League. He ultimately did not live up to that in the game against Baltimore. But as far as, hitting the panic button with Joe Burrow, I think he's just frustrated with losing. I think he's frustrating with, how things have transpired. I think ultimately he's frustrated that they've missed the playoffs 3 consecutive years. Despite all the injuries and how frustrating that is, he's looking up there going, we went to back-to-back AFC title games. This was supposed to be the norm here. We were supposed to be one of the best franchises and teams in the National Football League, and we haven't come close. these past few years. So I think that's where his frustration stems from. And, I thought Rossini did some good reporting as it related to that and Joe Burrow. A couple other things. We talked at length about the Dehner stuff. Not going to rehash all that as far as Taylor and Duke Tobin coming back next year. But you also have to understand it from an organizational perspective, right? I understand people are very, very frustrated with Zach Taylor. All right, I understand he's got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson. Of course, didn't really play this year and has now missed the playoffs 3 consecutive years. I get that is unacceptable. But when you have to look at this through the lens of Mike Brown, right, and the Brown family and the Blackburn family, what do they like to do? They like to stay out of it, right? How many times a year does Mike Brown talk? 2, right? How many times a year does Duke Tobin talk? 2, 3, right? These guys, they hide. They don't talk. And what does Zach Taylor do? He goes to the podium multiple times each and every week and handles these questions perfectly. I understand people are like, I would like to see some anger. I would like to see some rage. Come on, show me something. It's not how Zach Taylor operates, but the organization loves how Zach does that, how he goes in there, he takes blame, he remains calm, he answers all the questions, he spends time with the beat reporters. You got some of these coaches that go in there and they're just one-word answers and they're trying to do whatever they can to get out. Zach Taylor sits down, he gives them time, he answers the questions, and goes from there. And I think the organization loves that about Zach Taylor. And we couple that with him being under contract, they're just not going to move off him, right? Especially when you have the success that Zach Taylor has had over the course of his career as a head coach. He's had some awful years. The first 2 were awful. I don't know if Andy Reid could have done much with the first 2, right? Then you go on these runs. You go to the Super Bowl. You go to the AFC title game. And then it's a fall from grace as you've missed the playoffs the past 3 years. When I'm evaluating Zach Taylor, this is really the first year where there's some more frustration with me towards Zach Taylor. Because, I mean, you had people frustrated with him when you were going to the Super Bowl and the AFC title game. Like, if you want to pick apart Zach Taylor those 2 years, I can't help you, right? And then last year, it was one of the worst defenses of all time. That's frustrating, but I don't think that is fully his fault. I think that is way more Duke Tobin's fault. And then this year is the year where it's like, Zach, I mean, we blamed it on the defense last year. You fired the coordinator. It was supposed to be better, and somehow it's even worse. You lost your quarterback. That's going to give you some more time. We understand that, but this is the first year where I've really said, I mean, Zach, this is, he bears a lot of weight here as far as the blame game goes. But ultimately, the organization's not going to move off him. Dehner said that. Shouldn't surprise many people. I don't think it's a certain thing at this point. I think if the season ended today, if they had played their final game, it would be certain. But as I've said throughout the week, I think this evaluation process needs to continue over the next 3 weeks for Zach Taylor. And I'll sit here and give my opinion after these 3 games are played, whether I think they should hold on to Zach Taylor or not. But I don't think he should be out of the woods yet. And I don't think even, with Dehner's reporting, that was kind of how things ended right now. And as I've said, things are bad right now. Not good at all. Things could also get a lot worse. So we'll monitor that over the course of the next few weeks. And lastly, Jason Williams wrote a column. He's a columnist for the Inquirer. Does a terrific job. We'll try to get Jason on the show here at some point in the near future. But basically the column was the organization, the Bengals, they don't care about you. They don't care about the fans at all. And it's true. As sad as it is to say, it is true. And just kind of walking into that game last week when they lost 24-0, you couldn't help but feel like a bit of a peasant a little bit, right? Because you're sitting here, you're like, man, it's cold as heck out, right? It's taking forever to get in the stadium because they got gates shut down. I was, had ESPN on earlier that morning, and the snow was the seats were covered in snow. I wasn't surprised at all, right? I wasn't too butthurt about the whole thing. I know people are running with that narrative too, but it was the least surprising thing in the world that the Bengals didn't brush off the seats, right? You just kind of feel like a peasant going in there. And you're like, yeah, this team stinks, but I'm going to show up here just because, I want to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase play, right? But they don't care, right? It doesn't matter what the fans do. Doesn't matter what the fans say. Doesn't matter what the beat reporters write. Doesn't matter what the national talking heads say. Doesn't matter what people on talk radio, people like I, say. Doesn't matter at all. And I think that carries some weight in other organizations, truly. I think you talk about blocking out the outside noise, but a lot of these owners, they listen. They listen to sports talk radio. They listen to what the fans are saying, and they make brash decisions. The Brown-Blackburn family, they don't give a rip. Oh, we're not going to buy season tickets and not show up to the game. They don't care. They don't care at all. They're still getting their fat revenue share check from the National Football League when the year's all said and done. They don't care. You're not showing up to their games? They don't care. You're not buying season tickets? They don't care. You're not happy with Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor? They don't care. And unfortunately, that will never change. And that's just something that people are going to have to come to terms with. And it's unfortunate, right? Because you sit there and you buy the gear, you buy the swag, you sit down, you watch them, you buy some tickets to go into the games. They don't care. They don't care at all, and they never will care, if we're being completely honest. I don't think they're going to change at any point. I don't think that's going to be any different in the years going forward, right? They just aren't good, and they understand that, and I think it's going to continue to go in that direction. So there's nothing that the fans can do. There's nothing that the people that support this team, right, the people that try to get in, buy seats, buy tickets, there's nothing that they can do, no boycotts that can be had, that's going to change this organization. They don't care, and they're not going to care forever. And that's just kind of the unfortunate reality of the situation. All right, let's transition this conversation a little bit away from the Cincinnati Bengals. Some big-time news here this morning. Jizzle James, he is going to return to action for Wes Miller and the Cincinnati Bearcats. It feels like a Hail Mary. It feels like a move of desperation. If we're being completely honest here. We've talked about this at length. The Bearcats, of course, have a lot of talent on their team. They're a high-end roster, but has it resulted in wins whatsoever? Absolutely not, right? They have fallen so short of the expectation year in and year out with Wes Miller. The one thing he's been able to do, he's been able to recruit. He's been able to get some talented guys into the program, into the building, but he hasn't been able to translate that to any success on the basketball floor. And I think it was, kind of the general consensus that Jizzle James was going to kind of redshirt this year, right? He was kicked off the team several months ago, so that's not great. Guy was kicked off the team, and now he's back on the team, right? So if the Bearcats were winning all these games and having success, right, and hanging in there and taking steps in the right direction, I don't think he'd be back on the team at this point. But Wes Miller's sitting there going, we are absolutely awful. We lost to Eastern Michigan. We got embarrassed against Xavier. And, we no-showed in the second half against Georgia. Like, I got to do something. I'm coaching for my job here at this point. And they made the decision to bring back Jizzle James, and he is going to play. Now, apparently he's been around the team. He's been still enrolled, obviously, in the university. He's been working out, all right? He was on the bench for the Georgia game, and he was at the Tarleton State game. So this was kind of trending, I guess, in this direction. But it'll be interesting to see how he fits into this team. As we talked about how this team is totally different except Day Thomas is back. Well, now this team's totally different, but Day Thomas and Jizzle James is back. And Jizzle James as a freshman was so electric. He was so fun to watch, right? He would come in off the bench. He would get to the rim. He would have a steal or two. He would have great athleticism. Maybe he'd make a shot or two from the perimeter as well. And we were all saying, oh, my goodness, Jizzle James, this is awesome. Bring him into the starting lineup. He's going to be a great player here for several years if you can retain him. And, after that freshman year, it didn't live up to those expectations. Hasn't been that great since. And then you have the off-the-court stuff with Jizzle and, some of the screenshots that were posted of him talking to his agent, saying bad things about the program, guys on the team wanting out. Just very toxic situation. And I think there was a lot of people that thought Jizzle was kind of a cancer to the team and one of the reasons that they didn't have much success last year. And then it wasn't the end of the world if they had to go in a different direction with Jizzle. One thing you can't deny is his athletic ability is there, and he's a good basketball player, and he'll be one of the best basketball players on this team, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits in. Because if he's going to hang out, and I said this on off the bench, if he's going to hang out on the perimeter and shoot up threes with his boys and brick the heck out of them, it's not going to look good, right, for the Cincinnati Bearcats. They're not going to have much success out there on the basketball floor if that's what he's doing. He's got to find a way to get to the rim. He's got to find a way to drive and kick, right, try to open up some more free looks for some of his shooters who can't make shots. So we'll see if that has any positive effect or not. But this Bearcat offense, when you watch them, they just hang out. They kind of stare at each other. Wes got all 25 million of his assistant coaches. They're all sitting there not doing anything. Wes occasionally will clap really loud or stomp his feet really loud or yell something really loud, but they don't do really anything on offense, and then they just shoot up a bad shot at the end of the shot clock, and they miss it, and they go back on defense. The other team tends to score on them. Right? That's kind of their approach to basketball right now. Jizzle hopefully can change that. But one of the things about Jizzle is he was not good defensively. And we all know Sean Abayev can't defend either. So if he's on the floor at the same time with Sean Abayev, that's some pretty easy buckets for the opposition. So we'll see. This is a game tonight that they should win. They're 22.5-point favorites, right? I mean, you might as well fire West if you lose this game, right? If we're being honest here. How are things going to look with Jizzle James out there? And you've kind of got a bit of a warm-up game here with Alabama State. I think this is a great time to bring him back. It's not like you're in Big 12 play just yet, right? This isn't a team against a game against a team with an elite level of competition, you kind of have a game here to work some kinks out. All right, how are we going to play him? And, we'll see if he's on a minutes restriction or whatever, but I would play him as much as you can if you're Wes Miller to try to figure out some rotations and how he's going to fit in on this team. From a teammate perspective, we'll see. We'll see if he's matured at all a little bit. We'll see how he handles adversity. We'll see how he handles failure, right? Because he hasn't played in a while. So for him to come in here and just be great, I don't think is a realistic expectation. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be some times where he's sitting on the bench and clutch moments where he doesn't want to be sitting on the bench. How's he going to respond? What kind of teammate is he going to be? But ultimately for me, it's how he's going to defend. Has he improved as a defender or not? Because if he hasn't, I don't know really how much positive impact he can have on this team here at this point, if I'm just being completely honest. So we'll see. Kind of the news of the morning. People have been speculating that, Jizzle would come back here at some point. Ultimately, he does. And we'll see if he starts tonight. We'll see how many minutes he gets tonight. But it kind of feels like a Hail Mary here from Wes Miller and company. Because, mark my words, if they were having success, if they would have beat Xavier, if they would have hung on after the first half and beat Georgia, probably not having this conversation. They don't lose at home to Eastern Michigan, right? They probably say, you know what, Jizzle, we respect that you're here, you're working out, you're coming to the games, right? You're getting back in the program, but just do your classes, your online classes, work out. We're looking forward to having you on the team next year. Not the situation they find themselves in, as he will be back in action tonight. All right, let's do our college football playoff predictions, right? 12-team playoff, second year of the 12-team format. There's still fixes that need to happen. Right, I've been on the record saying this. I think it is positive that you have one group of 5 team in. That's my mindset right now. Maybe that will change in the coming years, right? If these teams continue to get blown out, it probably will change. But the reason I like it is because I like how you come into a college football season, regardless of where you're playing, and technically have the ability to win a national championship. I like that, right, personally. It's college basketball. That's why college basketball is so good. Joe Klatt, who I respect, was saying some crazy stuff about March Madness that was just delusional. Maybe we'll break those down on a later show. But March Madness is awesome. If you don't like March Madness, then you probably don't like sports, which, I don't understand that, but fair play. But March Madness is tremendous. And there's always going to be upsets in March Madness and a team that's going to go on a run. Now, as a team, won a national title out of it, not in recent memory, of course. That Butler team with Hayward got so close, right? But I like how those, non-traditional powers have an opportunity. So I say put one of them in. Now, this year you have 2 of them in because the ACC is horrible, and that's just kind of how things shook out. And when you have James Madison and Tulane in and powerhouses like Texas, Vanderbilt team on the outside looking in, Notre Dame. Like you have James Madison and Tulane in and Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt out. That's not great. We all understand that. So that's got to get cleaned up a little bit. First round, I'm looking at these games. The Friday night game should be good, right? Oklahoma, Alabama, I expect that to be a good game. But beyond that, Tulane, Ole Miss, we've seen it already this year, and Ole Miss won by 35. James Madison going to Autzen to play Oregon. That's going to be really lopsided and one-sided. Luckily, there's an NFL game on Saturday night there as well, so you don't have to tap into that. And then the A&M Miami game is compelling, right? Noon game Saturday. We'll see what happens there, but I would assume A&M is going to take care of business. But the quarterfinals and the semifinals and hopefully the national championship are going to be awesome. That's kind of what it feels like here at this point. So we'll roll through our predictions here. We'll start with the first round. Obviously, the Friday game, Alabama and Oklahoma. Brett Venables has had Kalen DeBoer's number. 2-0. Right? Just abused them. Most embarrassing loss for Alabama in my lifetime. Losing in the game last year, the regular season game in Norman, to Oklahoma. Jalen Milroe, just a horrible performance as the quarterback of Alabama. They lose that game and then played a little bit better this time around in Tuscaloosa, but still found a way to lose, right? And they lose the turnover battle in that game. Oklahoma plays really good defense. They're going to play good defense on Friday night and ultimately win that game. So it's a big game for Kalen DeBoer. Last thing he wants to do is go 0-3 against Brent Venables in Oklahoma. It's got to go back to Norman for this game. I like Alabama in this spot. The break is big. They played in the SEC title game, which, isn't ideal for them just because their team's so beat up. I think Ty Simpson was really, really beat up as well. But he was playing like the best quarterback in the country for the first part of this year and then fell off, but I think he's banged up. Hopefully the extra week gives him some time to be a little bit more healthy. He can settle in, not have happy feet. You've kind of seen that with Simpson here recently. And I expect him to play well in the game. Mateer, since his injury, really has fallen off. They want to run the ball. They want to play defense. They don't really ask him to do a ton, but I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think Alabama ultimately gets it done on Friday night. They beat Oklahoma. Texas A&M, Miami, Kyle Field. It's a break for Miami. One, it's a break that they got in, right? Not even playing in the ACC title game, and they find a way in over a team in Notre Dame that, they beat, but Notre Dame had been ranked above them the whole time the college football playoff rankings were coming out. So I've got some issues with that, as we've talked about on the show. But I think A&M controls this game. A break for Miami that it's at noon. I think Kyle Field at night is one of the most difficult places to play in the country, but it's a noon game. I think it'll probably be close for the first half, but ultimately I think Marcel Reed and those receivers with Craver and Concepcion kind of can separate themselves a little bit for Miami. I think they're going to play well in defense. Don't expect Carson Beck to have a big game here in round one. I think ultimately Texas A&M wins. Hopefully that's going to be compelling, because that kind of feels like the only one that can be on Saturday, but that's at noon, and I would expect Texas A&M to take care of business in that game. Ole Miss is going to beat Tulane again. Summerall, credit to him, he's coaching, right? Kind of juggling the two jobs right now with the Tulane job and the Florida job. And I respect the heck out of that. I respect the heck out of Tulane for letting him do it. It's different, right, with the Kiffin stuff. It's not like he's going to a rival. Like, Florida is clearly a step up from Tulane. Tulane understands that. They appreciate what Summerall has done. They're letting him coach in the playoffs. That's absolutely the right call. Don't see this being competitive, though. There is the kicker of, Lane Kiffin's not there. Pete Golden's their coach. How are they going to play? How's the offense going to function? I think it's enough to win this game handily. Maybe they don't win by 35 again, but they win the game. Oregon, James Madison. That's going to get out of hand. It's going to get out of hand early. Credit to James Madison for the year that they've had. They've got kind of the same thing with the coach still there before he leaves and ultimately coaches elsewhere. Billy Napier is going to take over at James Madison, as funny as that is to say out loud. But, it's just different levels there, and it's Autzen Stadium, right? Maybe you have a prayer keeping it close for a quarter if it's neutral field, but Oregon should handle this game, assuming they show up ready to go and don't sleepwalk through the beginning of the game. So hopefully we get a good game with Alabama, Oklahoma. Hopefully we get a good game as well with Texas A&M, Miami, but the other two don't anticipate them to be competitive. All right, round two, quarterfinals. This is where it really gets good. Texas Tech, they've had a heck of a year, and, they're in the Big 12, right? They put together their roster through the transfer portal, and a lot of people were like, you can't do that, right? Teams have tried in the past, doesn't work. Well, it worked for Texas A&M. They've got dudes all over the place. That defense is for real. I truly believe they can win the national title. I don't think they're fluky at all. Now, tough draw for them. They're going to have to play Oregon immediately, so they could kind of do what Oregon did last year and go one and done immediately. Obviously, the seeding's a little bit different there, but wouldn't surprise me if Texas Tech was the national champion. Wouldn't surprise me if they lost to Oregon. We'll see how they play in that game. But that game's going to be awesome. Texas Tech and Oregon. Going to be an incredible football game. I'll go Tech here. I think Oregon has gotten hot here, but I don't think Oregon's nearly as good as they were last year, despite I think their quarterback in Dante Moore is better than Dylan Gabriel was last year, but I don't fully trust him. I think Texas A&M, that defense, Jacob Rodriguez, David Bailey, they fly around, they make plays. The other linebacker had a great game in the Big 12 title game against BYU as well. Baron Morton, their quarterback, he takes care of the football. They can run it well. McGuire's got him playing hard. I got Texas Tech winning the game against Oregon. It'll be interesting to see who's favored in that game. I really don't know. It's going to be very, very close. But I like Texas Tech to edge out Oregon in that game. Indiana's going to play Alabama. I think, if Alabama beats Oklahoma, I think you would say, you know what, that's a successful year for Alabama. Year two, Kalen DeBoer, get to the SEC title game, respond after losing that awful game week 1 to Florida State, get to the playoffs, win a playoff game. I think you're like, that's not. I understand the expectation level in Tuscaloosa as national title or bust, but I think for year 2, this would be a significant step in the right direction if they beat Oklahoma and ultimately lose to Indiana. But Indiana's going to be fresh. They're going to be rested. And, they're the much better team here at this point. And if there was any doubt about Indiana, they'd prove that wrong against Ohio State. They are a real football team. There's a reason they're the number 1 overall seed. Give me the Hoosiers in that game. Georgia, Ole Miss. I'll go with Georgia here in the spots. I just think Kirby, coming off a bye, winning the SEC, they've got a lot of confidence here. It took them a while to get going And Kirby's kind of done this recently when they play these middle-of-the-road SEC teams. It doesn't always look great, and they just kind of barely win. And then Kirby will go, it's the nature of our league. It's the nature of the SEC. And that always chuckles me a little bit. But Georgia's playing their best football right now. They were outstanding against Alabama. The question is, are they going to, at some point in this playoff run, if they're going to win the national title, they're going to have to really rely on Gunnar Stockton, and he's going to have to help win them a game. He's done that in the past. He did it early in the year against Tennessee on the road, which is why I have confidence that he can do it again. But he didn't really have to do much against Alabama. They were playing defense. They were running the football. Schumann's done a tremendous job on the defensive side, coordinator for Georgia. So I think Georgia handles business against Ole Miss and advances to the Final Four. Ohio State, A&M, compelling game. A&M can play defense. They can score a little bit too. One noteworthy aspect. People were kind of talking about Ohio State. Oh, they lost. They didn't look good, whatever. Only gave up 13 points in the game. So the defense had some opportunities. Mendoza, I thought, was great. Made some outstanding plays. But let's not act like Indiana went out there and scored 28 points. That didn't happen. Only scored 13. So, be on the lookout for that going forward. Like A&M, are they going to be able to get 20 points in this game? I don't know. We'll see. Give me the Ohio State Buckeyes in that matchup. So Texas Tech, Indiana, and Georgia, Ohio State as kind of the Final Four here, and that would be the top 4 seeds there as well. I think Tech is going to pull off the upset and beat Indiana. I think it's the best year in Indiana history. They win the Big Ten. They get to the playoff. They're a 1 seed. They win a game. I think it ends there. A little bit. I'm going to say Texas Tech pulls off the upset. I would imagine that Indiana would be probably a 6.5-ish point favorite in this game, but I'm really in on this Texas Tech team. I trust them running the football. Baron Morton, I trust him as well. He's had some injuries, but he can make some throws. Has had some turnovers, which is, a little bit concerning, but I think Tech pulls off the upset here, and I think they knock off Indiana. And Indiana, greatest year in program history. I think they'll be a force for a while. I'm not going to say they're going to win a national title ever. They're going to have to figure out what to do to replace the quarterback in Mendoza, but I think their run ends in the semifinals. And I like Georgia against Ohio State. Of course, Kirby and Ryan have squared off once in the past. Kirby got the better of him in that matchup. And the thing about Ryan Day is he's a heck of a coach, right? And he's a heck of a recruiter. But if you put him in a close game, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? Kirby's going to put him in a close game, and I give the coaching advantage there in that situation to Kirby. I think those are probably the two best coaches in the National Football League. And I give the advantage to the Georgia in this game. I think they can hang in there and play some defense against Ohio State, make it a low-scoring game, make it tight, put Ohio State kind of in a similar spot that Indiana had them in, and ultimately win the game. And that means Georgia and Texas Tech for the national title. I will take Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. I think he gets natty number 3. And, again, in order for this to happen, they're going to have to rely on Stockton at some point. They're not just going to be able to run the ball and play defense. At some point, he's going to have to make some big-time throws and high-leverage moments. And I think he will do that ultimately. And I will take the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smarts. And got to give a lot of credit to how they've gotten better over the course of the year. Right? And like Ohio State's gotten better too, but you saw them immediately and you're like, oh, yeah, this team is for real, for real. Georgia, you saw them at the beginning and you're like, they don't look like Georgia. Now all of a sudden, this time of the year, they're hoisting the SEC trophy and they look like Georgia, and I think ultimately they pulled off, beat Texas Tech, which would be a heck of a run for the Red Raiders to get to the national title game. All right, so, let's talk Arch Manning for a quick second before we get into some sports headlines here to close out today's show. Arch is going to be back for the Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian next year. This is the right call, absolutely, for Arch Manning. I was drinking all the Kool-Aid, hand up accountability. I've got no problem admitting that. I still think he's going to be a first-round pick, and I still think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. But clearly, he's got a lot of developing that he needs to do, and he did that throughout the course of the year. Had some really bad games, right? And Texas, I talked about this when talking about Texas getting in the playoffs. It wasn't the 3 losses. That wasn't the issue for me. It was how bad they looked in some of their wins. They were lucky to beat Kentucky in overtime on the road. They were lucky to beat Mississippi State, and they looked like crap against UTEP as well. So I don't think you can have games like that and have 3 losses and still get in. But Arch got better as the year went on. That is undoubtable. How he performed against Vanderbilt was incredible. How he performed against Texas A&M, that was their signature win to end the season, was incredible. So they peaked at the right time. It was a little bit too little too late, but I understand why Texas people were frustrated they didn't get in after, having a huge win against Texas A&M to end their season. But he's got a lot of things he's got to do mechanically. Look, the Manning family, they know what they're doing, right? They were going to handle this the perfect way. That shouldn't surprise anybody. And, I think there's a possibility that he comes back, plays for Texas next year, gets better. Maybe they lose in the playoffs earlier than he wants and says, I'll come back one more year, right? I don't think next year necessarily is a guarantee that Arch Manning is done playing college football after next year. There was the hype about him being the number 1 overall pick this year after 1 year as the starter. I was buying into the hype. I was never buying into that. And I still think that he could reach that status. I still think eventually he could be the number 1 overall pick. But he had some stuff to clean up mechanically. Sometimes you talk about the alignment. We talk about Joe Burrow, lower half, always perfect. Arch is kind of all over the place. Sometimes his release just looks a little quirky, and he's kind of finishing out here to his left shoulder, and it just doesn't look great, and it caused some inaccuracy in the past. And I think ultimately Texas is not as good of a football team as many people thought coming into the year. But excited to have Arch back in college football next year. Excited to see how he plays against Michigan, right? That's a bowl game, right? He's going to be playing. And, we'll see. Michigan's obviously a total mess, and we'll see how they play. But, before the show more stuff, it's like, it's a bowl game, lots of opt-outs, whatever. But Michigan-Texas was kind of compelling. Michigan now is a mess. I'll still tap into that game, but we'll see how Arch plays in that game because it's another opportunity to put some good things on tape and see how he can get better. But I'm by no means out on Arch Manning. Love everything about him. He's got to clean up some stuff mechanically. That'll fix some of his accuracy issues, but he's going to be back. Absolutely the right call. And, with him coming back and the roster that Texas has, they should be in the conversation as far as national title contention next year. Now, Steve Sarkisian, on the other hand, people have wanted to crown him for so long, like he's a Kirby Smart or even a Ryan Day. And I think he deserves a lot of criticism for how things went this year for Texas. And he's struggled to win the big game, and I don't know if that's going to change necessarily. But Arch coming back, certainly good for the Texas Longhorn football program. Couple more headlines I want to hit on before we get out of here on today's show. The Reds made a signing. They signed Caleb Ferguson to a contract, relief pitcher, lefty. Positive, right? I understand the discourse around the Cincinnati Reds is kind of dark and depressing right now after you miss on a guy like Kyle Schwarber. But, you needed to make a signing like this. Look at your lefties, okay? You got Suter and who else, right? You needed to bring in another guy. And he's bounced around a little bit, has played for different teams. He's not going to blow you away with his fastball or anything like that. But some of the metrics will point out that he keeps the ball in the ballpark. Something you need to do. Coming out of the pen, pitching in a small park like GABP, keep the ball in there, provide some weak contact, and go from there. So I don't know exactly how much the Reds are going to be paying him, but I've got no issues with this. They needed to address their bullpen. It's going to look a little bit different this year than it did last year. And then getting a guy like Ferguson in is very positive for the Cincinnati Reds. He's had some success. Again, he's bounced around. This isn't some all-star guy, but it's a guy that's going to be making millions of dollars for you next year. I don't know how many million exactly, but, you're going to be paying him some money. And hopefully he can come in and keep the ball in the ballpark and, eat up some innings maybe, coming out of the pen and pitching some high-leverage moments and set things up for Emilio Pagan, who ultimately will take the hill in the ninth inning if you're winning the ball game. So no major reaction. It was something that you needed to do. You needed to get a lefty in there. And by all accounts, the stats would say, it's a pretty good signing. And feel pretty good about that. But Caleb Ferguson going to be a Cincinnati Red. Xavier Creighton tonight. Mentioned this at the top at Cintas Center, 6:30 tip. Xavier, I believe, 2.5, 3.5 point favorites, somewhere in there. If you would have said going into the year, Xavier's going to be favored in this game, I would say you're absolutely crazy. Creighton, I've always kind of admired Creighton from afar. I think McDermott's incredible. If you watch some of the stuff he draws up offensively, right? Kind of crazy that him and Wes Miller had the same profession, right? Because McDermott is just unbelievable drawing stuff up late in the game offensively, and we'll see if he finds himself in that situation late tonight against Xavier. But they're really struggling, kind of replacing Kalkbrenner. They had some older guys on that team, and this is a team that's made the tournament 8 out of the last 9 years. It's been a really solid program. He's got some allegiances to Creighton. He's the guy who's, when a big-time job opens up, his name is always kind of in the mix, but he's stayed at Creighton, has done a tremendous job. His son, of course, played for him. His son's kind of a journeyman in the NBA, but making millions of dollars shooting the three ball. Not getting a ton of minutes, but just, it's a basketball family, and I've always admired the heck out of McDermott as their coach. But they're without their best player. He got hurt early, Jackson McAndrew, and since they lost him, things have really kind of spiraled a little bit for them. So they're not a good basketball team. game, and as things sit here on December 17th, I would say they're probably not going to make the tournament. So this is an opportunity for Xavier to get into Big East play, understand the increase in level of competition, but also come in with some confidence. Xavier playing good basketball right now. It's not like they got to start with UConn or St. John's, right? They're starting with the team in Creighton that's having a down year, and we'll see what kind of points they can score in this game. It's going to be funny watching this game. Because teams are going to be chucking the three. Creighton shoots the heck out of the three, and so does Xavier. So it's going to be a three-point shooting contest, which when they're going in, it's fun to watch, and when they're missing, it's kind of like, all right, what are we doing here? But, Borovichinin, we'll see if he can kind of build off. He had the slow start shooting to the year, made a couple big ones against UC, has been shooting it pretty well ever since. Trey Carroll, of course, went off against UC. I'm going to need him to always have a big game if Xavier's going to want to knock off some quality teams. All right there, of course, as well, as another guy that could come in and potentially have a big-time impact for them. But they're going to play several guys, as Pitino has shown, and we'll see how this transitions into Big East play. I'm looking forward to watching that game tonight, Xavier and Creighton, because it's a Creighton team. McDermott, they've had success in the past, but you come in as if you're Xavier in this game, you're at home, you have a lot of confidence, you're favored in the game. We'll see what you can do. Alabama State, Cincinnati. Look, Cincinnati needs to win this game handily, right? The last thing Wes Miller wants is to get in a rock fight here with Alabama State and it be close with 7-8 minutes left to go in the game, right? This is a game where you want to go into halftime with a sizable lead, and you want to come out the first 3-4 minutes of the second half and ultimately build off it. We'll see. If they are capable of doing that. As we mentioned, Jizzle James comes back in the lineup. He is going to play. I don't know if he will start, but he will play for Cincinnati tonight. Kind of nice to get him in a game like this, a game which you're a heavy favorite, right? Kind of loosen him up a little bit, get him in the flow, get him back to playing competitive basketball before you get into Big 12 play. Mustafa Cham's got to be better. Right? I mean, I don't know what the bigs look like for Alabama State, but I mean, he deserves a lot of blame for how things have transpired. Like, he is a big guy down there in the post. He needs to show some strength, some physicality, go get a rebound, and be tough at the rim and quit falling down when he tries to put up a hook shot, right? Be physical down the post, be a presence down there, clap for the ball, want your teammates to throw it into you, and make a play. Right, Mustafa Cham has really struggled. The expectation level is so high for him, and he hasn't come close to it, in my opinion. Obviously, UC can't shoot the ball. They can't shoot the free throw either. Right, Buck Harris, we all like his effort and athleticism, but sometimes it's just out of control and he can't make a shot. Right, so if you're out of control going down the lane, throwing up a brick off the backboard, and if you get fouled, you can't make your free throws, it doesn't really do much. Appreciate him on the defensive end, but he's got to play better basketball as well. Day, we talked about his role changing this year. Well, they need him to score. That's just kind of how they're built right now. He's got to score. Sean Abayev, he's got to guard somebody on defense, right? Sean Abayev's got to get to the rim a little bit more. There's no drive and kick element to Cincinnati, right? That's the easiest way to create offense, in my opinion, in basketball, besides maybe the pick and roll. Just drive and kick, right? You drive, the defense is going to suck down on you, and somebody's going to be open on the perimeter, right? UC probably will miss the shot, but it's a heck of a lot better than just passing it around the outside and then hoisting up a three. Right, somebody drive and kick. Abayev has that element to his game. Do it. And he's got to shoot the ball better as well. Right, this is a top recruit. This is a high prospect. This is a 5-star guy. He's got to shoot the ball a little bit better than he has. Shot it good in the first half against Louisville. That was great. But he's got to shoot the ball a little bit better. Celestine, that was he missed some time there with the injury. Baylor transfer. He's the only reason you were in that game against Georgia for a little bit there in the second half. He was making some shots. He's got to continue to shoot the ball well as well. But you got to get to the rim, right? You got to establish some offense. If you're Wes Miller, you got to give your team an easy look. I can't remember the last time where it's like, oh, that was a nice little play there. Oh, there's an open look. Yeah, maybe it didn't go in, but it was an open look, a good shot. They take so many contested shots. They're out of control. They're just a really bad basketball team. And we'll see if Jizzle James can figure that out and help them a little bit, aid them a little bit, or if he could hurt them. If you're adding talent to your team, we understand that. But when you insert somebody into your lineup here in December 17th after you've played a lot of games, there's no guarantee that it's going to get better. There's a world where this thing gets worse. So I'll be watching the game closely tonight and see how Jizzle James can perform as he works his way back into the lineup. We mentioned Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter for Miami this week, and I kind of said this yesterday. McDaniel, you can say what you want about him. He's a little bit quirky. Sometimes says some things at the podium that has you scratching your head a little bit, right? But Mike McDaniel, from a football perspective, from a scheme perspective, I respect the heck out of him. And you hear people from around the league saying, yeah, his players respect the heck out of him too. And I think you saw that in the game against Pittsburgh, particularly in the first half where they were playing hard. They were playing their hearts out. And, suboptimal conditions. You're a Miami team playing in freezing cold temperatures. They were out there tackling, hitting guys, especially in the first half, running the football. And I think that says a lot. I think you probably bring him back. If I'm Miami, I bring him back. I understand a new GM might want his guy. It's tough to do the half in, half out thing. We've said that a lot. The Giants are doing that kind of in reverse order, right? They're keeping the GM, but let the coach go. I don't like half in, half out. Usually doesn't work. But this case with McDaniel, I might do the half in, half out. I might bring in a GM and say, you know what, we're going to stick with McDaniel, but would love to have you aboard and obviously run things from a draft personnel perspective. But the stuff he does in the run game, it's becoming more obvious. And they had some distractions off season about, not being buttoned up all the way. And that's kind of what you have when you don't have like an alpha like that in the locker room like Mike McDaniel. But, I mean, from a run game perspective and, what they've been able to accomplish defensively going forward, I look at the situation, I go, Tua's holding him back. It's a quarterback issue. I don't think things are going to look great for him with 7th-rounder Quinn Ewers getting started against Cincinnati. We'll see, but they're in this contract with Tua, and it's like there's always ways to get out of contracts. You see it. Denver did it with Russell Wilson. You can get out. But can you go into next year and say, yeah, Tua's going to be our guy? I don't know if you can. Phillip Rivers will start Monday night against the San Francisco 49ers. It's interesting. Shows you how far. I get Anthony Richardson's been hurt. I think he's probably would be good to go now. But it just kind of shows you how this league, a lot of these coaches would rather trust an older guy. Look at the Bengals, right? Joe Flacco, getting him in here, right? I understand Jake Browning played awful, but there's just, when you lose your start, it's like, shoot, we just need a guy in here, a mature adult to come in the room that understands how to read a defense and can just run our plays, right? And Anthony Richardson, it's one of the biggest whiffs we've seen recently, right? Anybody that watched college football knew it wasn't going to work, right? Yeah, he's this guy, athletic, he's got a big arm, can run, can run people over too, but he's not accurate with the football. He didn't win at a place like Florida, and, it's been bad in the NFL. And, they could go with him this week, I think, if they wanted to, but they're going to go with the 44-year-old grandpa, right? So that just says a lot about, some of these young quarterbacks. They come in here and they're in over their skis, and they don't know what to do. And that's kind of what you're seeing with Indianapolis. Pretty hard to imagine, hard to believe that they're going with Phillip Rivers here in the spot, a 44-year-old guy. But interested to watch him, right? Island game, Monday Night Football, two teams that are competing for the playoffs. We'll see how old Phillip does. Thought he played solid against Seattle, about as good as they could have hoped, to be completely honest. Lastly, Packers-Bears on Saturday. 2 games on Saturday. Thankfully, we have that on Saturday night, so we don't have to watch James Madison in Oregon. But I'm really interested to see what Matt LaFleur does here, because people had him on the hot seat earlier. Reed and I were saying, that was just ridiculous. Matt LaFleur on the hot seat, right? I've defended Zach Taylor at times throughout the year. If Matt LaFleur was on the open market, I would do everything in my power if I'm the Bengals to bring in Matt LaFleur. But really going to find out a lot about him, because it's not like the NBA, right? If the Lakers lost Luka, they're cooked. Right, they have no chance. In the NFL, you can still, especially if it's not your quarterback, can have a chance to still go on a run and still win a world championship. So I'm not ready to write Green Bay off, and he's got an opportunity, he being Matt LaFleur, to build a lot of credibility here going forward over the next couple of weeks. If they can, hang in there, make the playoffs, and win a playoff game, that's going to say a lot about him as a coach without Micah Parsons, their closer, the guy that they traded 2 first-round picks for, and Christian Watson obviously banged up there as well. So we're going to find out a lot about Matt LaFleur here over the course of the next few weeks as they get ready to play the Bears again. These two teams just played a couple of weeks ago, but Green Bay got the better of them. At Lambeau, we'll see how the Bears respond in this game, and really looking forward to that. I'm not ready to write off the Green Bay Packers yet. Had them in the Super Bowl, and sucks for them. They lose Micah. They have injuries, but we'll see if Matt LaFleur can keep this thing together with Jordan Love pulling the string there at quarterback. All right, appreciate everyone, as always, for tuning in with us here on a Wednesday. A couple of good games tonight. Xavier, of course, in action against Creighton, and Cincinnati in action, of course, as well against Alabama State. News of the day, Jizzle James will be back with the Cincinnati Bearcats, back in action, and the Miami Dolphins will go with Quinn Ewers and he will start against the Cincinnati Bengals. But got a couple of good shows planned throughout the rest of the week. Be on the lookout for our Christmas schedule. Still working through that on when exactly we will be live and what have you. But do have a couple of guests tomorrow and Friday, so looking forward to that. And be sure to follow us on social media for updates on that. And at the Stone Shield Show on Instagram, at the Stone Shields on Twitter, Seabox Sports on Twitter there as well. Give us a follow. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button there as well. We appreciate everyone as always. And until tomorrow, take care, everybody.